Rain slams the pavement like gunfire. Emily Hayes stands perfectly still beside her decade-old Honda, hands visible, breathing controlled, while three officers circle her trunk like wolves closing in on wounded prey. The youngest cop, badge still shiny, probably graduated the academy 6 months ago, pops the latch with a crowbar. The lid swings open. Inside, 4 vacuum-sealed bricks. White powder compressed tight. Maybe 15 kilos total. Jesus Christ, the rookie whispers. Emily doesn't flinch. Doesn't cry. Doesn't even look surprised. The lead officer, thick neck, eyes like dead glass, steps close enough that she can smell stale coffee on his breath. Emily Ann Hayes, you are under arrest for possession with intent to distribute a controlled substance. He smiles. Small, cold. You have the right to remain silent. She meets his gaze, steady, unblinking. You're making a mistake, she says quietly. He laughs, short, brutal. Lady, the only mistake here is yours. The cuffs click shut around her wrists, steel biting into skin, and the world tilts sideways as they shove her into the back seat. Through the rain-streaked window, she watches them photograph the trunk, catalog the evidence, seal her fate with practiced efficiency. But they don't notice the small black device clipped inside her jacket collar. Recording, uploading, time-stamped and geotagged. Emily closes her eyes. They think this is the end. It's not. It's exactly what she's been waiting for. Before we dive in, if you're watching from New York, Lagos, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, or anywhere else on this planet, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you're ready to watch powerful people fall and a quiet soldier rise, hit that like button and stick with me until the very end. Because what happens next, nobody sees coming. 14 hours earlier, Emily had been elbow deep in someone else's blood. The ER at Mercy General was a war zone most nights. Blackridge City had a way of chewing people up and spitting them out in pieces. But tonight was worse than usual. Gunshot wound to the abdomen, stab wound to the shoulder, overdose in Bay 3, another overdose in Bay 6, a kid with a fractured skull from a hit and run. Emily moved through it all like water, calm, efficient, invisible. She'd learned a long time ago that the best way to survive chaos was to become part of it. Don't stand out. Don't make noise. Just do the work. Hayes, I need 2 units of Oneg in Trauma 1 now. She was already moving. Grabbed the blood from the fridge, checked the labels twice, delivered them to Dr. Patel without a word. He didn't thank her. He never did. She didn't care. Across the room, another nurse, Vanessa, mid-40s, sharp tongue, sharper eyes, leaned against the supply cart and watched her with something that might have been curiosity or might have been suspicion. Hard to tell with Vanessa. You ever get tired of being perfect? Vanessa asked. Emily didn't look up from restocking the crash cart. I'm not perfect. You're close enough. Never late. Never complain. Never make mistakes. Vanessa tilted her head. It's weird. Maybe I just like my job. Nobody likes this job, honey. We tolerate it. Big difference. Emily finished counting syringes, closed the drawer, and finally met Vanessa's gaze. Then why are you still here? Vanessa grinned. Touché. The truth was simpler and more complicated than Vanessa could guess. Emily didn't stay because she loved nursing. She stayed because Mercy General was one of 3 hospitals in Blackridge that handled the overflow from the county jail, which meant she saw patterns, repeat patients, injuries that didn't match the stories, people who came in scared and left even more scared. She'd been documenting it for 8 months, quietly, carefully. Nobody knew. Not Vanessa, not Dr. Patel. Not even her younger brother, Marcus, who still thought she was just a tired nurse trying to pay off student loans. Her phone buzzed in her scrubs pocket. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen. Unknown number, tomorrow, 11 p.m. Bring what we discussed. Her jaw tightened. She deleted the message, pocketed the phone, and went back to work. Whoa. The rain started just after midnight. Emily clocked out at 12:47 a.m., peeled off her scrubs in the locker room and changed into jeans and a jacket. Her reflection in the mirror looked older than 32. Tired. Worn down. She'd stopped wearing makeup months ago. There wasn't much point when you spent half your shift covered in other people's fluids. Vanessa was still there, sitting on the bench, scrolling through her phone. "You heading home?" Vanessa asked without looking up. "Yeah. Be careful out there. Streets are nasty tonight." "Always am." Emily slung her bag over her shoulder and walked out into the rain. The parking lot was half empty, puddles reflecting the sickly yellow glow of the streetlights. Her car was parked in the back corner, same spot every shift, force of habit, and she approached it slowly, scanning the shadows out of reflex. Nothing moved. She unlocked the door, tossed her bag onto the passenger seat, and slid behind the wheel. The engine coughed twice before turning over. She let it warm up for a minute, then pulled out onto the street. Blackridge at night was a different animal. Neon signs flickered over empty storefronts. Homeless camps huddled under freeway overpasses. Cop cars prowled the intersections like sharks. Emily kept her speed exactly 5 miles under the limit. Hands at 10 and 2, eyes forward. She made it 3 blocks before the lights flashed behind her. Her heart didn't race. Her hands didn't shake. She'd been expecting this. She pulled over slowly, rolled down the window, and waited. 2 officers approached, one on each side. The driver's side cop was the one she recognized from the hospital. Sergeant Boyd. Thick neck, dead eyes. He'd come in twice in the past 2 months with suspects who had broken ribs and split lips. Always the same story, resisting arrest. "License and registration," Boyd said. Emily handed them over. He studied them for a long moment, then looked at her. "Step out of the vehicle." "Why?" "Step out of the vehicle." She unbuckled slowly, opened the door, and stood. The rain soaked through her jacket immediately. "Turn around, hands on the car." She complied. The second officer, younger, nervous, patted her down with shaking hands. Found nothing. Boyd circled to the back of the car. "Pop the trunk." "You need a warrant for that," Emily said quietly. Boyd smiled. "I have probable cause." "For what?" "Anonymous tip. Said you're transporting narcotics." He leaned closer. "So I'm going to ask you one more time. Pop the trunk." Emily's mind moved fast. She could refuse. Make them call a K9 unit. Drag this out. But that wasn't the plan. The plan required them to find what they were looking for. She reached inside the car, pulled the trunk release. The lid popped open. Boyd walked back, lifted it fully, and stared. Even from 15 feet away, Emily could see his expression shift. Surprise. Satisfaction. Greed. "Well, well," Boyd said slowly. "Looks like our tip was solid." The rookie came around, saw the bricks, and went pale. "Holy shit!" Boyd pulled out his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need a supervisor and evidence tech to my location immediately. Suspect in custody for felony possession." Emily stood in the rain and waited. Boyd approached her, cuffs already out. "Emily Ann Hayes, you are under arrest for possession with intent to distribute a controlled substance. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." She didn't resist as he cuffed her, didn't speak, just memorized every detail, every word, every movement. The rookie took photos of the trunk with his phone. Boyd called someone, not dispatch, someone else, and spoke in low tones Emily couldn't hear. Within 20 minutes, 3 more patrol cars arrived, then a black SUV. Out of the SUV stepped a man in a suit. Late 50s, silver hair, expensive watch. Commander Garrett Hale, highest-ranking officer in the Blackridge Police Department's Narcotics Division. He walked straight to Boyd, spoke quietly, then turned to look at Emily. Their eyes met. Hale smiled. It was the smile of a man who'd won a game she didn't even know she was playing. Except she did know. She'd been playing it longer than he realized. Ticked. They processed her at the central station. Fingerprints. Mugshot. Intake forms. She gave her information in a monotone, name, address, emergency contact, and said nothing else. They put her in a holding cell with 2 other women. One was asleep in the corner, curled into a ball. The other sat on the bench, picking at her nails, eyes hollow. Emily sat on the opposite bench and waited. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, a guard appeared. "Hayes, your lawyer's here." Emily stood and followed him down a narrow corridor to a small interview room. Inside, a man in a cheap suit sat at a metal table, flipping through a folder. He looked up when she entered. Mid-40s, thinning hair, exhausted. "Ms. Hayes, I'm Daniel Cross, public defender assigned to your case." Emily sat. "I didn't ask for a lawyer yet." "Standard procedure. You've been charged with a Class A felony. Bail hearing is tomorrow morning." He slid a paper across the table. "I need you to sign this so I can officially represent you." She didn't touch it. "What's the evidence against me?" Cross blinked. 15 kilograms of fentanyl found in your vehicle during a lawful traffic stop." "Lawful?" "According to the report, yes. Officer had probable cause based on an anonymous tip." "Convenient." Cross frowned. "Ms. Hayes, I understand you're upset, but I'm not upset. I'm telling you I was set up." He sighed, the sigh of a man who'd heard this story 1,000 times. "Look, I believe you, but belief doesn't matter in court. Evidence matters. And right now, the evidence says you're guilty. Then get better evidence." "It doesn't work that way." Emily leaned forward. "Mr. Cross, how many cases like mine have you seen in the past year? Same charge, same officer, same convenient anonymous tip." Cross hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "I can't discuss other cases," he said carefully. "You don't have to. I already know the answer." Emily stood. "I'll sign your form, but I'm not taking a plea deal, and I'm not going quietly." Cross stared at her. "Ms. Hayes, if you go to trial and lose, you're looking at 20 years minimum. If you take a deal, I can probably get you down to 5. "I'm not taking a deal." "Why not?" She met his eyes. "Because I'm not guilty, and because they picked the wrong person to frame." The bail hearing was a joke. The prosecutor, a sharp-faced woman named Linda Ortiz, painted Emily as a dangerous criminal with access to military training and potential flight risk. She requested bail be set at $500,000. Cross argued she was a healthcare worker with no prior record and deep community ties. The judge, an older man with a face like worn leather, listened to both sides, then set bail at $250,000. Emily couldn't afford that. Neither could Marcus, who sat in the gallery with his fists clenched and his eyes wet. She was remanded back to county jail. But county was worse than holding. Overcrowded, loud, violent. Emily kept her head down, stayed in her bunk, and observed. On the second day, a woman in the bunk below her leaned up and whispered, "You the nurse they grabbed?" Emily didn't answer. "Saw you on the news. They're saying you were running drugs through the hospital." "I wasn't." The woman, late 20s, tattooed neck, eyes too old for her face, snorted. "Yeah, none of us were." She paused. "But you really weren't, were you?" Emily finally looked at her. "No?" "Then you're screwed. They don't let people walk away once they decide you're guilty." The woman lay back down. "Happened to my cousin. Same thing. Pulled over. Drugs in the trunk. Couldn't afford a real lawyer. Took a plea. 10 years. "What was your cousin's name?" "Alicia Ruiz." Emily filed the name away. That night she started making a list in her head. Every name, every story, every pattern. She was up to 9 names by morning. Marcus visited on day 4. He looked terrible. Unshaven, bags under his eyes, hands shaking as he picked up the phone on the other side of the glass. "Em," he said, voice cracking. "What the hell is going on?" "I was framed." "I know that. But who? Why?" Emily glanced around. Guards everywhere. Cameras in every corner. "Not here. Just trust me." "They're saying you could get 20 years. "I won't." "How do you know?" She met his eyes through the scratched plexiglass. "Because I've been ready for this." Marcus stared at her. "What does that mean?" "It means you need to go to my apartment. Under the bed, there's a lockbox. Combination is your birthday. Inside is a USB drive. Take it to someone you trust. Not the cops. Not a lawyer. Someone outside the system." "Emily, but..." "Marcus, do you trust me?" He swallowed hard. "Yeah." "Then do exactly what I said, and don't tell anyone." The guard tapped his shoulder. "Time's up." Marcus stood slowly, still staring at her. "I'll fix this, Em. I swear. I know you will. He left. Emily hung up the phone and walked back to her cell. She had 3 weeks until trial. That was more than enough time. 2 days later, the news broke. Nurse arrested in massive fentanyl bust. Her face was everywhere. Local news, social media. The hospital released a statement saying she'd been terminated effective immediately. Former coworkers were interviewed. Some defended her. Most didn't. Vanessa appeared on Channel 7, looking somber. I worked with Emily for 2 years. She was quiet, professional. I never would have guessed. Emily watched from the dayroom TV, expression blank. Beside her, the tattooed woman, her name was Jordan, shook her head. They always do that, make you the monster so nobody asks questions. Yeah, Emily said softly. They do. Jordan glanced at her. You got a plan, nurse? Emily didn't answer, but Jordan smiled anyway. You do. I can see it. She leaned closer. Whatever it is, I hope it burns them to the ground. Marcus found the USB drive. He didn't know what to do with it at first. Thought about taking it to the police, then remembered Emily's warning. Thought about a lawyer. Same problem. Finally, he took it to the one person he trusted outside the system, his old journalism professor, a woman named Dr. Renee Okoro, who'd spent 20 years investigating corruption and lived to tell about it. He met her at a coffee shop in the university district, slid the drive across the table. What is this? Renee asked. My sister's. She's in jail. She said to give it to someone I trust. Renee studied him for a long moment, then pocketed the drive. I'll look at it. No promises. That's all I'm asking. Renee went home, locked her doors, closed her blinds, and plugged the drive into her laptop. What she found made her blood run cold. 8 months of documentation, audio recordings, video clips, photos, GPS logs, medical records with timestamps, financial transactions, names, dates, locations, a full map of a trafficking operation running through Black Ridge PD. And at the center of it all, Commander Garrett Hale. Renee sat back in her chair, heart pounding. This wasn't just evidence. This was a bomb. Inside County, Emily's life became a careful routine. Wake at 6, breakfast, yard time, lunch, day room, dinner, lights out at 10. She used every free minute to talk to other inmates, quietly, carefully. She learned that Jordan's cousin wasn't the only one. There were others, lots of others. Same pattern, same officer, same charge. Some took plea deals. Some went to trial and lost. Some were still waiting. All of them innocent. On day 9, a guard pulled Emily aside. You got a visitor. My brother? No. A lawyer. Not your public defender. Someone else. Emily followed the guard to a private room. Inside sat a woman in a tailored suit. Early 50s, steel gray hair, eyes like scalpels. Ms. Hayes, my name is Catherine Marks. I'm a federal prosecutor with the Department of Justice. Emily sat slowly. Why are you here? Because someone sent me a very interesting USB drive. Marks opened a folder. 8 months of surveillance. Documentation of a criminal conspiracy involving narcotics trafficking, evidence planting, witness intimidation, and racketeering, all centered around the Black Ridge Police Department. Emily's expression didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. Marks smiled. Yes, you do, because you compiled it. She leaned forward. You're not just a nurse, are you, Ms. Hayes? Silence. Military records are sealed, but I have friends in interesting places. Field medic, deployed twice, honorable discharge, and before that some very specialized training. Emily's jaw tightened. So here's what I think happened, Marks continued. You came to Black Ridge, got a job at Mercy General, started noticing patterns, and instead of reporting it through official channels, which you knew would get you killed, you decided to document everything yourself. Then you waited, because you knew eventually they'd come for you. And when they did, you'd have everything you needed to bury them. Emily said nothing. Marks closed the folder. Am I warm? Hypothetically, Emily said slowly, if someone did all that, what would happen to them? Hypothetically, they'd be the DOJ's star witness in the biggest corruption case this state has seen in 30 years. And in exchange for their cooperation, all charges against them would be dropped immediately. Emily studied the woman across from her, looking for lies, for traps. She found none. How long do I have to decide? 72 hours. After that, my offer expires and you go to trial. Mark stood, left a business card on the table, and walked out. Emily sat alone in the room for a long time. Then she picked up the card. On the back, handwritten in neat script, "They thought you were prey. Show them what a soldier looks like. Bonne sorte." Emily called Marks the next morning. "I'm in." "Smart choice. We move fast. Federal task force is already assembling. We'll need you to walk us through everything. Timelines, contacts, evidence chains." "I can do that." "Good. And Ms. Hayes?" "Yeah." "Thank you for not giving up." Emily hung up and leaned against the wall of the phone bay. For the first time in weeks, she let herself breathe. But Hale wasn't stupid. He'd been watching her since the arrest, waiting for her to break, to talk, to make a mistake. When she didn't, he got nervous. On day 12, a new inmate arrived in Emily's block, quiet, kept to herself, watched Emily with too much focus. Jordan noticed immediately. "That's a plant," she whispered during yard time. "I know." "What are you going to do?" "Nothing. Let her watch. There's nothing to see." But that night, the plant made her move. She cornered Emily in the showers, alone, no cameras, just the two of them, and the sound of running water. "You need to take the plea deal," the woman said. Emily turned slowly. "Who sent you?" "Doesn't matter. Just take the deal. Walk away. Forget whatever you think you know." "And if I don't?" The woman stepped closer. "Then you won't make it to trial." Emily didn't blink. "Tell Hale he's already lost. He just doesn't know it yet." The woman's face went pale. Emily walked past her out of the showers, back to her cell. Jordan was waiting. "You okay?" "Yeah." "She threatened you?" "Yeah." "You scared?" Emily smiled, just a little. "No." 72 hours later, everything moved at once. Federal agents descended on Black Ridge like a hammer. Warrants executed. Phones seized. Bank accounts frozen. Hale's office was raided at dawn. Boyd was arrested during a traffic stop. 3 other officers were pulled from their homes in front of their families. The news exploded. Federal investigation rocks Black Ridge PD. Corruption scandal. Dozens implicated. Nurse framed by police. Now key witness. Emily watched it all from county, arms crossed, expression calm. Jordan sat beside her, grinning like a wolf. "You did this. Not just me. Still, you did this." On day 14, Catherine Marks appeared again. "All charges dropped. You're free to go." Emily stood, walked out of county, into the rain. Marcus was waiting outside, engine running. She climbed into the passenger seat. He stared at her. "What the hell just happened?" Emily buckled her seatbelt. "Justice." "That's it? That's all you're going to say?" She looked at him. "For now." Marcus laughed, shaky, relieved. "You're insane." "Maybe." He pulled into traffic. Emily leaned her head against the window and watched the city blur past. It wasn't over, not yet, but the scales were finally tipping. And when they finished falling, Hale and everyone who protected him would be buried underneath. She closed her eyes. The war was just beginning. The apartment smelled like dust and abandonment. Emily stood in the doorway, staring at the space she hadn't seen in 2 weeks. Everything looked smaller than she remembered. The couch sagged in the middle. The kitchen faucet dripped. Mail was piled on the counter, bills mostly, and a few letters from people she didn't know offering sympathy or condemnation depending on which news channel they watched. Marcus hovered behind her, keys jangling in his hand. "You want me to stay?" he asked. "No." I'm fine, Marcus. Go home. Get some sleep." He didn't move. "They're going to come after you again. You know that, right?" She turned to face him. "Yeah, I know." "So what's the plan?" "Survive, testify, make sure Hale never sees daylight again." Marcus rubbed his face. "That's not a plan. That's a wish list." It's all I've got right now. He stared at her for a long moment, then pulled her into a hug. She didn't resist, didn't pull away, just stood there and let him hold her until he let go. Call me if you need anything, he said. Anything. I will. He left. Emily locked the door behind him, walked to the bedroom, and collapsed onto the bed, fully clothed. She should have showered, changed, eaten something, but her body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds and her brain was running on fumes. She closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come. Instead, her mind replayed the past 2 weeks on a loop. The arrest, the jail, the threats, the plant in the showers, Marx's offer, the raids, the news coverage, the look on Hale's face when the feds dragged him out of his office in cuffs. She'd won, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like the opening round of a fight that was going to get a lot uglier before it was over. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it, squinted at the screen. Catherine Marks. Deposition scheduled for Monday, 9 a.m. Federal Building downtown. Don't be late. Emily typed back a single word. Understood. She set the phone down, rolled onto her side, and stared at the wall until the sun came up. The news didn't stop. Every channel, every site, every platform. Blackridge scandal. Deepens. More arrests expected. Former nurse emerges as federal witness commander. Hale pleads not guilty, claims frame-up. Emily avoided all of it. Turned off her phone, unplugged the TV, stayed inside. But the world didn't let her hide for long. On the third day, someone knocked on her door. She looked through the peephole, saw a woman in her 60s, gray hair pulled back, holding a casserole dish wrapped in foil. Emily opened the door halfway. Can I help you? The woman smiled. I'm Margaret Leary. I live 2 floors down. I just wanted to bring you this. She held up the dish. Chicken and rice. Figured you might not feel like cooking. Emily hesitated. That's kind of you. It's the least I can do. What they did to you was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Thank you. Margaret handed over the casserole, still smiling. If you need anything at all, just knock on my door. I'm in 3B. I appreciate it. Margaret nodded and walked away. Emily closed the door, carried the dish to the kitchen, and set it on the counter. She stared at it for a long moment, then peeled back the foil and smelled it. Looked fine, smelled fine. She didn't touch it. Paranoia wasn't always a bad thing, especially not in Blackridge. Monday arrived faster than she expected. Emily dressed in the only professional outfit she owned, black slacks, white blouse, gray blazer, and tied her hair back in a tight bun. She looked like a school teacher trying too hard, but it would have to do. Marcus picked her up at 8:15. You ready? He asked as she climbed into the car. No? Good. Means you're smart. They drove in silence through downtown Blackridge. The federal building loomed ahead, 12 stories of concrete and glass, flags snapping in the wind out front. Security checkpoints, metal detectors, armed guards. Emily's stomach twisted. Marcus pulled up to the curb. You want me to come in? No, they won't let you pass security anyway. Then I'll wait out here. Marcus, I'll wait. She didn't argue, just grabbed her bag and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the building was all white marble and echoing voices. She checked in at the desk, got a visitor badge, and took the elevator to the 9th floor. Catherine Marks was waiting in a conference room with 3 other people Emily didn't recognize. 2 men in suits, 1 woman with a laptop. Ms. Hayes, Marks said, standing. Thank you for being on time. Didn't have much choice. Marks gestured to the others. This is Agent Roderick from the FBI, Agent Lim from the DEA, and this is Sarah Eng, our forensic accountant. Everyone nodded. Emily nodded back. Have a seat, Marks said. We've got a lot to cover. Emily sat. For the next 4 hours, they walked through everything. The timeline, the evidence, the recordings, the financial trails, the names, the dates, the locations. Emily answered every question, showed them photos, played them audio clips, explained how she documented each transaction, each meeting, each shipment. Agent Roderick took notes. Agent Lim asked follow-up questions. Sarah Eng cross-referenced everything against bank records. Marks just watched. Finally, around 1 p.m., Marks called for a break. "You're doing great," she said as the others filed out. "Better than I expected." Emily rubbed her temples. "How much longer?" "Another hour, maybe 2. Then we'll prep you for testimony." "When's the trial?" 6 weeks, maybe 8. Depends on how fast Hale's lawyers try to stall." "They're going to come after me." Marks didn't deny it. "Yes, they will. Which is why we're assigning you a protective detail." "I don't need protection. It's not optional. 2 agents, 24/7 coverage until the trial ends." Emily wanted to argue, wanted to say she could handle herself, but she was too tired. "Fine." "Good." Marks stood. "Take 10 minutes. Get some air. We'll start back up at 1:30. Emily left the conference room, walked to the nearest bathroom, and locked herself in a stall. She leaned against the door, closed her eyes, and counted her breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. She was halfway through her 10th breath when she heard the door open. Footsteps. Heels clicking on tile. A pause. Then a voice. "Emily Hayes?" Emily opened her eyes. "Yeah?" "My name is Diane Rossi. I'm a reporter with the Black Ridge Tribune." Emily's jaw tightened. "How the hell did you get in here?" "I have a press badge. Look, I just want to ask you a few questions." "No." "It'll only take a minute." "I said no." Emily flushed the toilet for show, unlocked the stall, and walked out. Diane was standing by the sinks, late 30s, sharp suit, recorder in hand. "People deserve to know the truth," Diane said. "Then write about Hale. Not me. I am writing about Hale, but you're part of the story whether you like it or not." Emily washed her hands, dried them, and turned to face the reporter. "You want a quote? Here's your quote. I did my job. I documented crimes. I handed the evidence to the feds. That's it. I'm not a hero. I'm not a victim. I'm just someone who got sick of watching bad people win." Diane scribbled in her notebook. "Can I ask why you waited so long to come forward?" "Because I needed proof, and because I knew if I went to the wrong people, I'd end up dead." "Do you think the entire department is corrupt?" "No, just the people at the top, and the ones who looked the other way." "What do you want to happen to Commander Hale?" Emily met her gaze. "I want him in a cell for the rest of his life. No parole, no deals, no second chances." Diane stopped writing. "You think that's going to happen?" "I'm going to make sure it does." Diane studied her for a long moment. "Off the record?" "Nothing's off the record with you people." "Fair enough." Diane pocketed her notebook. "For what it's worth, I hope you're right. Hale's been untouchable for years. If you can bring him down, you'll save a lot of lives." "That's the plan." Diane left. Emily stood alone in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. She looked older, harder, like someone who'd been through a war and come out on the other side with scars she couldn't show anyone. She splashed cold water on her face, dried it with a paper towel, and went back to the conference room. The deposition ended at 3:30. Marks walked her to the elevator. "You did well today, really well." "Doesn't feel like it." "It never does. But trust me, you gave us everything we need." The elevator doors opened. Emily stepped inside. "One more thing," Mark said. "Your protective detail starts tonight. 2 agents will meet you at your apartment at 6. "Great." The doors closed. Emily rode down alone, walked out into the late afternoon sun, and found Marcus waiting by the car. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Long?" "That's it?" "That's it." They drove back to her apartment in silence. Marcus didn't push, didn't ask questions, just drove. When they pulled up outside her building, Emily saw them immediately, 2 people in a black sedan parked across the street, watching. "Those your babysitters?" Marcus asked. "Looks like it." "You gonna be okay?" "Yeah." He didn't believe her. She didn't blame him. She climbed out, walked to the building, and took the stairs to her floor. Inside her apartment, she locked the door, tossed her bag on the couch, and stood in the middle of the room trying to decide what to do next. Her phone buzzed. Unknown. Number. You made a mistake. Her blood went cold. She stared at the screen, waited. Another message appeared. You should have taken the deal. Then another. We know where you live. Emily's hands didn't shake. She screenshot each message, forwarded them to Marks, then blocked the number. Her phone rang immediately. "It's Marks. I saw the messages. Are you okay?" "Yeah." "Stay inside. I'm sending the detail up now." 2 minutes later, someone knocked. Emily checked the peephole. Saw a man and a woman in dark suits, both holding badges up to the glass. She opened the door. The man was mid-30s, buzz-cut, ex-military, written all over him. The woman was younger, sharp eyes, hand resting near her holster. "Ms. Hayes, I'm Agent Kowalski. This is Agent Tran. We'll be with you until further notice." Emily stepped aside. They came in, swept the apartment quickly, then took positions by the windows. "You'll want to keep your blinds closed," Kowalski said, "and don't answer the door unless we clear it first." "Understood." Tran glanced at her. "You get any other threats tonight, you tell us immediately." "I will." They settled in. Kowalski by the front window, Tran by the door. Emily went to the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. Her phone buzzed again. Marcus. "You sure you're okay?" Emily. "Yeah, feds are here. I'm fine." Marcus. "Call me if you need anything." Emily. "I will." She set the phone down and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. This was her life now. Threats, protection details, paranoia. All because she'd refused to let bad people win. She closed her eyes. Somewhere in the city, Hale was sitting in a cell, plotting, planning, pulling strings. And somewhere else, the people who'd helped him were scrambling, deleting files, burning evidence, preparing to fight back. The war wasn't over. It was just getting started. What? The next morning, Emily woke to the smell of coffee. She walked into the kitchen and found Tran pouring 2 mugs. "Hope you don't mind," Tran said. "Figured we all needed it." "Thanks." Kowalski was on his phone by the window, speaking in low tones. He hung up and turned. "Marks wants you back downtown at 10. More prep work." "Of course she does." Emily drank her coffee, showered, and changed into the same outfit from yesterday. She was running out of clean clothes, running out of energy. Tran drove. Kowalski rode shotgun. Emily sat in the back, watching the city roll past. They parked in the federal building's underground garage, took a private elevator straight to the 9th floor. Marks was waiting with a new face, a man in his 50s, gray suit, tired eyes. "Ms. Hayes, this is Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Brennan. He's lead prosecutor on the case." Brennan extended a hand. Emily shook it. "I've read your deposition," Brennan said. "It's solid, but we need to go deeper. Hale's defense team is already attacking your credibility. They're saying you fabricated evidence to cover your own crimes. That's insane." "Doesn't matter. It's what they're saying. So we need to bulletproof your testimony. Every detail, every recording, every document, no gaps, no inconsistencies." Emily sat. "Then let's get to work." They spent the next 6 hours tearing apart every piece of evidence. Brennan asked the same questions 5 different ways, pushed on timelines, challenged her memory, played devil's advocate. By the end, Emily's head was pounding and her throat was dry. Brennan closed his folder. "Good. You're ready." "That's it?" "For now. We'll do a mock cross-examination next week." "Great." Marks walked her to the elevator. "I know this is hard, but you're doing the right thing." "Doesn't feel like it." "It never does." The elevator doors opened. Emily stepped inside. "One more thing," Mark said. "Hale's bail hearing is tomorrow. We're opposing it, but there's a chance the judge grants it anyway." Emily's stomach dropped. "You're kidding. His lawyers are arguing he's not a flight risk, no prior record, community ties, the usual. He's a drug trafficker who framed innocent people." "I know, but the system doesn't always work the way it should." The doors closed. Emily rode down in silence, walked to the car, and climbed into the back seat. Tran glanced at her in the rear view. "You okay?" "No." They drove back to the apartment. Inside, Emily paced. Couldn't sit still, couldn't think straight. If Hale got out on bail, he'd disappear. Or worse, he'd come after her directly. Her phone rang. It was Marcus. "Did you hear?" he asked. "About the bail hearing?" "Yeah." "This is bullshit, Em. Complete bullshit." "I know." "What are you going to do?" "Nothing. It's out of my hands." "That's not good enough." It has to be. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You remember when we were kids and Dad used to say, sometimes you gotta fight dirty to win clean? Yeah. Maybe it's time you took that advice. Emily closed her eyes. I'm not like that. Maybe you need to be. He hung up. Emily stood in the middle of her living room, phone in hand, mind racing. Marcus was right. Playing by the rules only worked if the other side played by the rules too. And Hale had never played fair in his life. She walked to her bedroom, pulled out the lockbox from under her bed, and opened it. Inside, a second USB drive. One she hadn't given to the feds, one that contained everything she hadn't been able to prove yet. Theories, suspicions, names she couldn't verify. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she closed the box and shoved it back under the bed. Not yet, but soon. The bail hearing was a circus. Emily watched it on a live feed from the federal building. Mark sat beside her, expression grim. Hale's lawyer, a smooth-talking man in a $5,000 suit, argued that his client was a decorated officer with 30 years of service, a pillar of the community, a family man. Brennan countered with the evidence, the recordings, the financial records, the testimony of other officers. The judge listened to both sides, then took a recess. This is bad, Marks muttered. How bad? 50-50. Emily's hands clenched into fists. 30 minutes later, the judge returned. Bail is set at $2 million, cash or bond. Defendant is to surrender his passport and wear a GPS monitor. No contact with any co-defendants or witnesses. Hale's lawyer smiled. Brennan's face went dark. Mark swore under her breath. He's getting out, Emily said quietly. Yeah. When? Probably tonight, maybe tomorrow. Emily stood. I need air. She walked out of the conference room, down the hall, and into the stairwell. She sat on the steps and put her head in her hands. This was it. Hale would post bail, he'd walk free, and then he'd come for her. The feds could protect her for a while, but not forever. Eventually she'd be alone, and when that happened, she'd be dead. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, tick-tock. She stared at the message. Then she made a decision. She wasn't going to wait for Hale to make the first move. She was going to end this herself. That night, Emily told Kowalski and Tran she was going to bed early. They didn't question it. She went to her room, locked the door, and waited. At midnight, she heard their voices in the living room, quiet, relaxed. She opened her window slowly. The fire escape was right outside. She climbed out, careful not to make noise, and descended into the alley below. Then she ran. She didn't have a car, didn't have a plan, just adrenaline and fury and a name. Diane Rossi, the reporter. Emily pulled out her phone, found the Tribune's website, and called the main desk. I need to speak to Diane Rossi. It's urgent. She's not in the office. Can I take a message? Tell her Emily Hayes called. Tell her I have a story she's going to want to hear. She hung up. 10 minutes later, her phone rang. This is Diane. I need to meet you, tonight. Where? Emily gave her an address. A diner on the edge of town. 24 hours. Neutral ground. I'll be there in 30 minutes, Diane said. Emily hung up and kept walking. Behind her, somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. She didn't look back. The diner was the kind of place that had seen better decades. Cracked vinyl booths, fluorescent lights that buzzed like dying insects. A waitress who looked like she'd stopped caring about tips sometime in the 90s. Emily slid into a corner booth with a view of the door and the parking lot. She ordered coffee she didn't want and waited. Diane arrived 23 minutes later. She spotted Emily immediately, walked over, and sat down without asking. You ran from federal protection, Diane said. That's either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. Diane pulled out her recorder, set it on the table. So what's the story? Emily pushed the recorder back. No recording, not yet. Then why am I here? Because I need someone who can get information out fast. Someone Hale can't control. Diane leaned back. You want me to publish something the feds won't? Yes. What kind of something? Emily pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket pocket and slid it across the table. Diane unfolded it, scanned the contents. Her eyes widened. Where did you get this? Doesn't matter. Can you verify it? Diane read it again, slower this time. If this is real, if even half of this is real, it's not just Hale going down. It's the mayor. The city council. Half the department. I know. You're talking about a conspiracy that goes back 15 years. I know. Diane looked up. Why now? Why not give this to the feds? Because the feds move slow, and Hale just made bail. He's going to disappear or he's going to come after me. Either way, I'm running out of time. So you want me to publish this and force their hand? Yes. Diane folded the paper, tucked it into her bag. If I do this, I'm burning a lot of bridges. And if you're wrong, if any of this is fabricated, I'll lose my career. It's not fabricated. How do I know that? Emily met her eyes. Because I don't have anything left to lose. My job's gone. My reputation's gone. My life's on hold until this trial ends. The only thing I have left is the truth, and I'm not going to waste it on a lie. Diane studied her for a long moment. Okay, I'll need 24 hours to verify sources and cross-check the financial records. You have 12. That's not enough. It has to be. Hale walks tomorrow afternoon. Once he's out, he'll start cleaning up loose ends, and I'm at the top of that list. Diane's jaw tightened. Fine, 12 hours. But if I can't verify it, I'm not publishing. Fair enough. Diane stood, grabbed her bag. Where are you going now? Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Diane left. Emily sat alone in the booth, staring at her untouched coffee. Her phone was buzzing in her pocket, probably Kowalski and Tron realizing she was gone, but she ignored it. She had 12 hours. 12 hours to stay hidden, to stay alive. Then the world would know everything, and Hale would have nowhere left to run. Emily didn't go back to her apartment. Instead, she walked 3 blocks to a 24-hour laundromat, sat in the back corner, and watched the door. Nobody came. Nobody looked twice at the tired woman folding clothes that weren't hers. At 2 a.m., her phone finally stopped buzzing. At 3, it started again. She pulled it out. Saw Marcus's name. She answered. Where the hell are you? Marcus's voice was tight, scared. I'm fine. The feds are losing their minds. They think Hale's people grabbed you. They didn't. Then where are you? I can't tell you. Emily, Marcus, listen to me. In 12 hours, everything's going to change. But until then, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Silence. Then, yeah, I can do that. Good. Don't call me again unless it's an emergency. She hung up before he could argue. Outside, the streets were empty. A few cars passed. A homeless man pushed a shopping cart full of cans. A cop car rolled by slowly, spotlight scanning the sidewalks. Emily ducked lower in her seat and waited for it to pass. When it was gone, she stood, walked to the back exit, and slipped into the alley. She needed a place to hide, somewhere off the grid, somewhere nobody would think to look. She pulled up a map on her phone, scrolled through options, then stopped. St. Jude's Church, 2 miles west, open 24 hours for prayer and shelter. She started walking. The church was small, old brick, stained glass windows dark except for one dim light above the entrance. Emily pushed open the heavy wooden door and stepped inside. The interior smelled like incense and old wood. Rows of pews stretched toward an altar draped in white cloth. A few candles flickered in the corner. An elderly priest sat in the front row, head bowed. Emily walked quietly toward the back, slid into a pew, and lowered her head. She wasn't praying, didn't know how anymore, but she needed the silence, the stillness. The priest turned, saw her, and nodded once, then went back to his own thoughts. Emily closed her eyes. Hours passed. She must have dozed off because when she opened her eyes again, pale light was filtering through the stained glass. Morning. Her phone buzzed. Diane Rossi. Verified. Publishing in 30 minutes. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. She stood, walked out of the church, and kept moving. By the time the sun was fully up, she was 6 blocks away. She ducked into a coffee shop, ordered nothing, and borrowed the bathroom. Inside, she splashed water on her face, stared at her reflection. She looked like hell. Dark circles, pale skin, hair falling out of its tie. But she was still standing. That had to count for something. She dried her face, left the bathroom, and found a seat near the window. At exactly 7:30 a.m., her phone exploded. Texts, calls, alerts. She opened the Tribune's website. The headline filled the screen. Black Ridge corruption runs deeper than anyone knew. Exclusive investigation reveals mayor, city officials tied to drug operation. Below it, Diane's byline, and every detail Emily had given her. Financial records, shell companies, offshore accounts, names, dates, transactions, everything. Emily scrolled through the article, heart pounding. Diane had done it. She'd verified everything, cross-referenced sources, built an airtight case. Within minutes, the story was everywhere. National news, social media, trending worldwide. Her phone rang. Catherine Marks. Emily answered. "Where are you?" Marks sounded furious. "Safe. You pulled a runner from federal protection and leaked classified evidence to the press. Do you have any idea how much damage you just caused?" "I know exactly what I did. You compromised the entire investigation." "No, I forced your hand. Now you can't bury this. Now you have to move fast before Hale's people destroy the evidence." Marks was silent for a long moment. "You should have trusted us." "I did trust you, but I also know how slow the system moves, and I don't have time to wait." "Where are you?" Marks asked again, softer this time. "I'll come in, but not yet. I need a few more hours." "Emily, a few more hours. That's all I'm asking." She hung up. Outside, the city was waking up, people heading to work, cars in traffic. Normal life continuing while everything underneath it burned. Emily left the coffee shop and started walking again. She didn't have a destination, just momentum. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then curiosity got the better of her. "Hello?" "You made a very big mistake." The voice was calm, cold, male. "Who is this?" "Someone who's going to give you one chance to fix this. Retract the story. Say you fabricated the evidence, walk away." "Not happening." "Then you won't live to testify." The line went dead. Emily stood in the middle of the sidewalk, phone still pressed to her ear. Her hands were shaking now. She shoved the phone in her pocket and kept moving. 2 blocks later, she saw them. A black sedan. Tinted windows, parked on the corner. Watching her. She turned down a side street. The sedan followed. Her pulse kicked up. She started walking faster. The sedan sped up. Emily broke into a run. Behind her, the sedan's engine roared. Tires screeched. She ducked into an alley, vaulted over a chain-link fence, and landed hard on the other side. Pain shot through her ankle, but she kept moving. The sedan couldn't follow. But she heard doors slam. Footsteps. She ran harder. Emerged onto a busy street. Buses, taxis, pedestrians. She flagged down a cab, threw herself into the back seat. "Drive." The driver glanced at her in the rear view. "Where to?" "Just drive. Now." He pulled into traffic. Emily looked back, saw 2 men standing on the sidewalk scanning the crowd. One of them pulled out a phone. The cab turned a corner and they disappeared. Emily slumped in the seat, breathing hard. "You okay, lady?" the driver asked. "Yeah, fine. Take me to the federal building downtown." "You sure?" "Yes." He drove. Emily pulled out her phone. 17 missed calls, dozens of texts. One from Marcus. "What the hell is happening?" One from Diane. "You need to see this." She opened Diane's message. It was a link to another article. Different outlet, different reporter. Mayor denies allegations, calls Tribune report. Politically motivated fiction. Below it, a statement from the mayor's office. Denial. Deflection. Accusations that Emily had fabricated everything. Her stomach twisted. Of course they'd fight back. Of course they'd spin it. But the evidence was real. The records were real. They couldn't erase that. The cab pulled up outside the federal building. Emily paid, climbed out, and walked toward the entrance. Kowalski and Tran were waiting outside. Kowalski's face was stone. "You're under arrest." Emily stopped. What? Obstruction of justice. Witness tampering, violating the terms of your protective custody. You're kidding. Do I look like I'm kidding? Tran stepped forward, cuffs in hand. Turn around. Emily's mind raced. I need to speak to Catherine Marks. You'll get your chance after we book you. This is insane. Turn around. Emily turned. Tran cuffed her. Tight. Professional. Kowalski opened the back door of their sedan. Get in. She got in. They drove in silence to the federal detention center, processed her, took her prints, her photo, her belongings. Then they put her in a holding cell. Alone. Emily sat on the metal bench and stared at the wall. This wasn't part of the plan. She'd expected pushback, expected threats, but she hadn't expected the feds to turn on her. Hours passed. Finally, the door opened. Catherine Marks walked in. She looked exhausted, angry. You're an idiot, Marks said. Probably. You just made yourself a target for every dirty cop and politician in this city, and you gave Hale's lawyers ammunition to discredit you as a witness. I know. Then why did you do it? Emily looked up. Because waiting wasn't going to work. Hale was going to run or kill me or both, and the people protecting him were going to keep protecting him. So I forced the issue. Mark sat down across from her. The mayor's threatening to sue the Tribune. Hale's lawyers are filing motions to dismiss based on tainted evidence, and half the department is screaming that this is a witch hunt. Good. Let them scream. You don't get it. This could collapse the entire case. Or it could force everyone into the open. No more hiding, no more backroom deals. Everything's public now. Let them fight us in the light. Marks rubbed her face. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the dumbest. Can it be both? Marks almost smiled. Almost. The charges against you will be dropped, but you're staying here until we can guarantee your safety. How long? As long as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Marks stood, walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, the evidence you leaked is solid. We've already executed 12 new warrants, seized documents, frozen accounts. You accelerated the timeline by 6 months. So I did the right thing. You did a reckless thing that happened to work out. Don't confuse the two. She left. Emily sat alone in the cell, leaning her head against the cold wall. Outside, the world was burning. Inside, she was trapped. But the fire was spreading, and eventually it would consume everyone who'd helped Hale build his empire. 3 days passed. Emily stayed in federal detention. Not a jail, not a prison. Something in between. She had her own cell. 3 meals a day. Access to a phone for 15 minutes every evening. She called Marcus once, told him she was okay. He didn't believe her. On the 4th day, Marks returned. We've got movement, she said. The mayor's chief of staff just flipped. He's offering testimony in exchange for immunity. Emily sat up. What kind of testimony? Everything. Meetings. Payoffs. Shipments. He was Hale's inside man at City Hall. Will it hold up? If he's telling the truth, yes, we're corroborating everything he's saying. So far, it's matching your evidence. What about Hale? Still out on bail, still wearing the monitor, but he's not going anywhere. His lawyers know we've got him cornered. He'll run. Not if we move first. Marks leaned forward. We're accelerating the trial. 2 weeks instead of 6. Emily's eyes widened. That's not enough time. It has to be. Every day Hale's out there, more evidence disappears. More witnesses get scared. We need to lock this down before he destroys everything. What do you need from me? Your testimony, final prep, and total honesty. No more solo missions, no more leaks. You stay in protective custody until you're on that stand. Emily nodded. Okay? I mean it, Emily. No more running. I won't. Mark studied her. I want to believe you. Then believe me. Marks left. Emily lay back on the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. 2 weeks. 14 days. And then she'd face Hale in court. Under oath. With the whole world watching. She closed her eyes. Somewhere out there, Hale was planning his next move. And so was she. On day 7, everything shifted. Emily was in the middle of a mock cross-examination with Brennan when Marks burst into the room. We've got a problem. Brennan looked up. What kind of problem? Hale's GPS monitor went offline an hour ago. Emily's blood went cold. What does that mean? It means either the device malfunctioned or he cut it off. Marks pulled out her phone. U.S. Marshals are en route to his house now. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. Marks's phone rang. She answered, listened, then hung up. Her face was ashen. He's gone, she said quietly. House is empty. Car's still in the garage. No sign of forced entry. He just walked out. Brennan swore. How long ago? Best guess? 12 hours. Maybe more. So he's got a head start. A big one. Emily stood. He's not running. Everyone turned to look at her. What? Mark said. He's not running. He's planning something. He knows if he runs, he's guilty. He knows we'll find him eventually. So he's not running. He's finishing this. Finishing what? Emily met Marks's eyes. Me. Marks's expression hardened. We're moving you. Now. Where? Safe house, undisclosed location. No phones, no outside contact. For how long? Until we find Hale or until the trial, whichever comes first. Emily wanted to argue, wanted to say she could handle herself, but she was smart enough to know when she was outmatched. Okay, she said, let's go. They moved her within the hour. 2 marshals, unmarked car, tinted windows. They drove for 90 minutes, out of the city, into the hills, down back roads Emily didn't recognize. Finally, they pulled up to a small house surrounded by trees. No neighbors, no streetlights, just isolation. This is it, one of the marshals said. You stay inside. Don't open the door for anyone except us. Don't go near the windows. Don't make calls. Understood. They swept the house, checked the locks, then positioned themselves outside. Emily walked through the small space. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with outdated appliances, a living room with a TV that probably didn't work. She sat on the couch and waited. Hours passed. Night fell. She must have dozed off because when she woke, the house was dark and silent. Too silent. She sat up slowly. Outside, no sounds, no voices, no movement. She walked to the window, careful to stay out of sight, and peeked through the blinds. The marshal's car was still there, but the marshals weren't inside it. Emily's pulse spiked. She backed away from the window, moved toward the bedroom, and locked the door. Her phone was gone, taken when they moved her. No way to call for help. She searched the room, found nothing useful, no weapons, no tools. Then she heard it. Footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate. The front door handle turned. Locked. A pause. Then the sound of something being inserted into the lock. Picking it. Emily's mind raced. The bedroom window. Could she fit through it? She ran to it, tried to open it, painted shut. She grabbed a lamp, smashed the glass. The front door opened. She didn't hesitate. Climbed through the broken window, cutting her arm on the glass, and dropped into the dirt outside. Behind her, a voice. Calm. Familiar. Going somewhere, Ms. Hayes? She turned. Commander Garrett Hale stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light inside. He was holding a gun. Emily didn't move. Hale stepped onto the porch, gun steady in his right hand. He looked different than he had in court. Thinner, older, desperate. You've caused me a lot of trouble, he said. Emily's arm was bleeding from the broken glass. She could feel it dripping down to her wrist. Where are the marshals? Sleeping. They'll wake up with headaches. Nothing permanent. He descended the steps slowly. I'm not a monster, Ms. Hayes, despite what you think. You framed innocent people. Sold drugs that killed kids. You're exactly a monster. Hale's jaw tightened. I kept order in a city that was falling apart. I did what needed to be done. You got rich while people died. Everyone gets rich in this business. I just didn't pretend otherwise. He stopped 10 feet away. But you wouldn't understand that. You still think the world runs on fairness and rules. Emily's eyes flicked to the tree line, too far. She'd never make it. What do you want? She asked. I want you to disappear, permanently, and I want the second USB drive you didn't give the feds. Her blood went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You're too smart to put all your evidence in one place. So where is it? There is no second drive. Hale raised the gun, aimed it at her chest. Last chance. Emily met his eyes. If you shoot me, you'll never find it. And it'll go public automatically. It was a bluff. There was no dead man switch, no automatic upload. But Hale didn't know that. His finger hovered over the trigger. You're lying. Maybe. You willing to bet your life on it? They stood in silence. The night air was cold. Emily's arm throbbed. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Then headlights cut through the darkness. Hale spun toward the road. A car was approaching fast. No siren. No lights. Expecting company? Emily asked. Hale's face went pale. The car skidded to a stop. Doors flew open. 4 people emerged, all armed, all moving with military precision. But they weren't cops. They were wearing tactical gear. No badges, no identification. Hale's people. One of them approached. A woman. Mid-40s, cold eyes. Commander, she said, we need to move. Now. Hale glanced at Emily, then back at the woman. I'm not done here. Yes, you are. Feds are 5 minutes out. We got a tip they're converging on this location. How? Doesn't matter. We go now or we don't go at all. Hale hesitated. Then he looked at Emily one last time. This isn't over, he said. Yeah, Emily said quietly. It is. He turned and ran toward the car. Emily didn't wait. She bolted for the tree line. Behind her, engines roared, tires screeched. Then another sound, louder, closer. Helicopters. She looked up, saw searchlights cutting through the darkness. Federal. She kept running. 50 yards into the trees, she heard shouting, commands, then gunfire. She dropped to the ground, covered her head. The shooting lasted maybe 20 seconds. Then silence. Emily waited, breathing hard, bleeding, shaking. Footsteps crunched through the underbrush. Emily Hayes, she recognized the voice. Marks. Here, Emily called. Marks appeared, flanked by 2 agents. She saw Emily on the ground and rushed over. Are you hit? No. Cut my arm on the window. Marks helped her up. Hale? He ran. Had 4 people with him. They left when the choppers showed up. Marks spoke into her radio. Suspect fled in a vehicle. 4 accomplices, armed, heading east on County Road 9. Static. Then a response. Units in pursuit, air support tracking. Marks turned back to Emily. Can you walk? Yeah. They moved back toward the house. The 2 marshals who'd been guarding Emily were sitting on the ground, groggy but conscious. Paramedics were checking them. An agent approached Marks. House is clear. No sign of forced entry on the front door. Lock was picked clean. He had help, Marks said. Someone gave him the location. Emily's stomach turned. You've got a leak. Yeah, I know. Marks's face was stone. Get in the car. We're moving you again. Where? Federal courthouse, holding cell, 24-hour guard. No one in or out except me and Brennan. Emily didn't argue. They drove back to the city in a convoy. 3 cars, armed agents in each. Emily sat in the back, staring out the window. Her arm had been bandaged by a paramedic, but it still throbbed. Every bump in the road sent fresh pain shooting up to her shoulder. Hale was still out there, still free, but he was running out of options. And so was whoever had been helping him from the inside. The city skyline appeared on the horizon. Blackridge never slept. Even at 3 a.m, lights blazed from office buildings and apartment complexes. Emily watched it all blur past and wondered if she'd ever feel safe here again. Probably not. The convoy pulled into an underground garage beneath the federal courthouse. Concrete pillars, harsh fluorescent lighting, the smell of oil and exhaust. Marks led Emily through a maze of corridors to an elevator that required a key card. They rode up in silence. The holding cell was on the 4th floor. Small, concrete walls, steel door, a cot, a toilet, a sink. Nothing else. I'll have food sent up, Mark said, and a doctor to check your arm. I'm fine. You're not fine. You just got held at gunpoint by a fugitive who was supposed to be wearing a federal monitor. Marks rubbed her face. I'm sorry, Emily. This should never have happened. It's not your fault. It is. I cleared that location. I approved the security detail. I trusted the wrong people. Marks leaned against the doorframe. But I'm going to find out who leaked it. And when I do, they're going to regret it. Emily sat on the cot. How long until you catch Hale? Hours, maybe less. Air support's tracking the vehicle. Highway patrols setting up roadblocks on every major route out of the county. He's boxed in. He's been doing this for 30 years. He knows how to disappear. Not from helicopters with thermal imaging. Marks checked her phone. Get some rest. I'll update you when we have him. She left. Emily lay back on the cot and stared at the ceiling. Her mind kept replaying the moment Hale had aimed the gun at her chest, the way his finger had rested on the trigger, the calculation in his eyes. He would have killed her. No hesitation, no remorse. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. It didn't work. The federal courthouse holding cell was small. Concrete walls, steel door, a cot, a toilet, nothing else. An hour later, a doctor arrived. Older woman, kind eyes. She cleaned Emily's arm, applied fresh bandages, and gave her antibiotics. You'll need stitches, the doctor said, but they can wait until morning. The bleeding stopped. Thanks. The doctor packed up her supplies and left. Emily was alone again. She stood and paced, 12 steps wall to wall. She counted them over and over until the numbers lost meaning. At some point, food arrived, a sandwich, chips, water. She ate mechanically, tasting nothing. Her phone was gone. Taken when they'd moved her to the safe house. She had no way to contact Marcus, no way to know what was happening outside these walls. Just silence and waiting. Hours crawled by. Finally, the door opened. Mark stood there. Her face was grim but satisfied. We got him, Emily exhaled. He's alive? Yeah. Didn't put up a fight. Air support cornered him on a service road about 40 miles north. He pulled over, got out with his hands up, and surrendered. Mark stepped inside. It's over, Emily. Hale's in federal detention. Maximum security. No bail, no visitors except his lawyer. He's done. Emily sat down slowly. Her legs felt weak. What about the others, the people who helped him? Still rounding them up, but with Hale in custody, most of them are panicking. We've had 3 people turn themselves in already, trying to cut deals. Marks crossed her arms. His whole network's collapsing. Good. Marks pulled up the only chair in the room and sat. There's something else. We found the leak. Emily looked up. Who? U.S. Marshal named Kevin Driscoll. 15 years on the job. Clean record until now. He's been on Hale's payroll for 6 years. How'd you catch him? Phone records. He made a call to a burner number 30 minutes before Hale showed up at the safe house. We traced the burner to one of Hale's people. Driscoll cracked in about 10 minutes of questioning. Emily's hands clenched. What happens to him? Federal prison. Long time. He gave up Hale's location in exchange for a reduced sentence, but he's still looking at 15 to 20. He should get more. I agree. But we needed the information. Mark stood. Trial starts in 4 days. Judge denied Hale's motion to delay. We're moving forward. I'm ready. Are you? Mark studied her. Because this is going to be brutal. His lawyers are going to come after you hard. They'll try to make you look like a criminal, a liar, someone who fabricated evidence for revenge or money, or both. I know. And you can handle that? Emily met her eyes. I've been handling worse for months. I can handle 4 more days. Marks nodded slowly. Okay, get some rest. Real rest. You're going to need it. She left. Emily lay back on the cot. Her arm ached, her head pounded. But for the first time in weeks, she felt something close to calm. Hale was in custody. The leak was caught. The trial was coming. And when it was over, one way or another, this would finally be finished. The next 72 hours passed in a blur. Marks brought updates every few hours. More arrests, more people flipping. The mayor's chief of staff, 2 city council members, a judge, a state prosecutor. The scandal was metastasizing. Every news cycle brought fresh revelations. Every channel ran wall-to-wall coverage. Emily watched some of it on a small TV they'd brought to the cell. Saw her own face on the screen. Heard pundits debate whether she was a hero or a troublemaker. She turned it off. On the third day, Brennan arrived with a thick binder. "Final prep," he said. "We need to walk through your testimony one more time, every detail, every question they might ask." They worked for 6 hours. Brennan played the role of Hale's defense attorney, aggressive, sneering, relentless. He attacked her credibility, her motives, her memory. Emily answered each question calmly, precisely. By the end, Brennan sat back and nodded. "You're ready." "You sure?" "As sure as I can be. They're going to hit you hard, but if you stick to the truth and don't let them rattle you, the jury will see through it." "And if they don't?" Brennan closed the binder. "Then we lose. But I don't think we will." He left. Emily sat alone in the cell and tried not to think about what losing would mean. Hale walking free. Every victim's case dismissed. The whole corrupt system staying intact. She couldn't let that happen. The trial began on a cold Monday morning in November. The courthouse was surrounded. Media trucks, satellite dishes, reporters doing live shots, protesters on both sides, some holding signs supporting Hale, others demanding justice for his victims. Emily was escorted through a back entrance, flanked by 4 U.S. Marshals. Different ones this time, vetted personally by Marks. Inside, the courtroom was packed, every seat filled, people standing in the back, overflow watching on monitors in adjacent rooms. Hale sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit. His new lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Gregory Voss, whispered in his ear. Hale looked up as Emily entered. Their eyes met. He didn't smile, didn't sneer, just stared with cold, empty calculation. Emily looked away and took her seat behind the prosecution table. Brennan leaned over. "You ready?" "No." "Good. Means you'll stay sharp." The bailiff called for order. Everyone stood. The judge entered. Judge Helena Ramirez, late 50s, former prosecutor, reputation for running a tight courtroom. "Be seated," she said. The trial began. Brennan's opening statement was methodical. He laid out the conspiracy piece by piece, the drug operation, the planted evidence, the financial trails, the recordings, 23 counts, dozens of victims. "The defendant didn't just break the law," Brennan said. "He weaponized it. He used his position to destroy innocent lives while enriching himself and his co-conspirators. The evidence will show that Commander Garrett Hale ran a criminal enterprise that corrupted every institution it touched. And the evidence will leave you with only one conclusion: guilty on all counts." Voss stood for the defense. He was smooth, polished, expensive suit, confident smile. "The prosecution wants you to believe that a decorated officer with 30 years of exemplary service suddenly became a criminal mastermind. That a single nurse with no training and no oversight somehow uncovered a vast conspiracy that eluded federal investigators for years. They want you to believe that every piece of evidence she collected, alone, in secret, with no witnesses, is legitimate. But the truth is simpler. Emily Hayes was caught with 15 kilograms of fentanyl, facing life in prison. And she did what desperate people do. She lied. She fabricated evidence. She pointed fingers at anyone she could to save herself. Don't let her deception send an innocent man to prison. The jury watched. Some nodded. Others frowned. Emily kept her face neutral. The first witness took the stand, James Kellerman, the mayor's former chief of staff, the one who'd flipped. He testified for 2 full days, described meetings at City Hall, envelopes full of cash, shipments coordinated through municipal vehicles, names, dates, specific amounts. Voss tore into him on cross-examination. "Mr. Kellerman, you're testifying in exchange for immunity, correct?" "Yes." "So you have every reason to lie, to say whatever the prosecution wants you to say to save yourself from prison." "I'm not lying. You're a career politician. Your entire job is lying." Brennan objected. The judge sustained, but the damage was done. Next came the forensic accountant, Sarah Eng. She spent a day walking the jury through spreadsheets, shell companies in Delaware and Nevada, wire transfers to offshore accounts in the Caymans, millions of dollars moving through businesses that didn't exist. "Can you say with certainty that these accounts belong to the defendant?" Voss asked on cross. "The signatory on the accounts matches the defendant's handwriting, and the IP addresses used to access them match devices registered to the defendant." "But You can't say the defendant personally made every transaction. No, but the pattern is consistent with someone controlling the accounts. So it's your opinion, not a fact. It's a professional analysis based on the evidence. Voss smiled. Opinion, thank you. No further questions. The trial moved into its second week. More witnesses, more evidence. Financial experts, drug enforcement agents, former officers who'd been pushed out for asking questions. Each one painted a picture of systematic corruption. But Voss chipped away at every testimony, found inconsistencies, highlighted gaps, planted seeds of doubt. Then came the recordings. Brennan played them for the jury. Hours of audio. Hale's voice on wiretaps, discussing shipments, coordinating payoffs, threatening witnesses. The courtroom went silent as the recordings played. One in particular stood out. Hale's voice, "I don't care what you have to do, make the problem disappear." Another voice, "You mean..." Hale, "I mean handle it, permanently if necessary." The jury shifted uncomfortably. Voss objected. "Your Honor, these recordings are taken out of context. The defense needs the full conversations to properly evaluate their meaning." Judge Ramirez overruled. "The full recordings are in evidence. The jury will have access to them during deliberation. Continue, Mr. Brennan." Brennan played 3 more recordings, each one damning. By the end of week 2, the prosecution rested. Now it was the defense's turn. Voss called character witnesses, fellow officers, community leaders, people who'd known Hale for decades. They described him as dedicated, honorable, a family man. Brennan cross-examined each one. "Did Commander Hale ever discuss his finances with you?" "No." "Did he ever mention offshore accounts?" "No." "So you can't testify about whether he had them or not?" "No." "Thank you. Nothing further." Voss called a handwriting expert who testified that the signatures on the offshore accounts were possibly but not definitively Hale's. Brennan brought in a rebuttal expert who said they were a 93% match. The defense's case lasted 3 days. Hale never took the stand. Finally, it was time for Emily. Emily walked to the witness stand on a Thursday morning. The courtroom was packed, every eye on her. She raised her right hand. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." She sat. Brennan approached. "Ms. Hayes, please state your name and occupation for the record." "Emily Ann Hayes. I'm a registered nurse. I was employed at Mercy General Hospital in Blackridge until my arrest." "And why were you arrested?" "Police claimed they found drugs in my car during a traffic stop." "Did you place those drugs there?" "No." "Do you know who did?" "Yes, the officers who arrested me, specifically Sergeant Boyd, acting under orders from Commander Hale." "How do you know this?" "Because I recorded them discussing it beforehand." Brennan played the recording, Boyd's voice, Hale's voice, planning the setup, timing, location. The jury listened. Brennan walked Emily through her entire story, how she'd started noticing patterns at the hospital, how she'd begun documenting everything, the 8 months of evidence collection, the recordings, the photos, the financial records. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "Because the police were part of the problem." "Why not the FBI?" "Because I needed ironclad proof first. I knew if I went to anyone without absolute evidence, I'd either be ignored or killed." "So you took it upon yourself to investigate?" "Yes." "Were you trained for that?" "No, but I was trained to observe, to document, to follow protocols. I applied the same skills I used in nursing." Brennan spent 3 hours walking her through every piece of evidence. Emily answered each question clearly, calmly. Then Brennan sat down. Voss stood. He approached slowly, smiled. "Ms. Hayes, you've painted quite a picture here. A lone nurse taking on a corrupt police department. Very dramatic." Emily didn't respond. "But let's talk about the night you were arrested. You claim drugs were planted in your car, correct?" "Yes." "But you have no proof of that, do you?" "I have recordings, alleged recordings, which you claim to have made, which you controlled, which you could have edited or fabricated." Brennan stood. "Objection. The recordings were authenticated by multiple forensic experts." "Overruled," Judge Ramirez said. The witness may answer. Emily looked at Voss. The recordings are real. The metadata proves they weren't edited. 3 independent experts verified them. Experts hired by the prosecution. Experts with decades of experience and no connection to this case. Voss changed tactics. Let's talk about your financial situation. You had student loans, correct? Yes. How much? About $80,000. And you were working extra shifts to pay them off? Yes. So you needed money. I needed to pay my bills, like most people. The drugs in your car were worth approximately $500,000 on the street, correct? I wouldn't know. But if you'd sold them, you could have paid off your debts and had plenty left over. I didn't plant those drugs. I didn't plan to sell them. But you can't prove that. The evidence proves it. The evidence you collected. The evidence you controlled. Voss stepped closer. Isn't it true that you fabricated all of this to cover your own crimes? No. Isn't it true that you were caught red-handed with drugs and you created an elaborate conspiracy theory to explain it away? No. Isn't it true? Emily's voice cut through. I documented crimes for 8 months. I risked my life to gather evidence. I was arrested, threatened, nearly killed. I lost my job, my home, my entire life. Why would I do that if I was guilty? Voss smiled. Because you're desperate. Because you're facing life in prison. Because you'll say anything to save yourself. I'm telling the truth. Your version of the truth. Brennan stood. Your Honor, counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Move on, Mr. Voss. Voss continued for 2 more hours, attacking her credibility, her motives, her memory. Emily held steady. Finally, he sat down. Judge Ramirez looked at Emily. You may step down. Emily stood. Her legs shook, but she walked back to her seat without stumbling. Brennan leaned over. You did great. She didn't feel great. She felt wrung out. But it was done. Closing arguments came 2 days later. Brennan stood before the jury. The evidence in this case is overwhelming. You've heard testimony from multiple witnesses. You've seen financial records. You've listened to recordings of the defendant planning crimes. The defense wants you to believe this is all fabrication. But ask yourselves, why would so many people risk everything to lie? Why would Emily Hayes spend 8 months documenting crimes if she was the criminal? Why would financial records, recordings, and witness testimony all point to the same conclusion if it wasn't true? The answer is simple. Because it is true. Commander Garrett Hale ran a criminal enterprise. He destroyed lives. He corrupted institutions. And he must be held accountable. Voss stood. The prosecution has built a house of cards. Every piece of evidence comes from compromised sources. Criminals trying to save themselves. A desperate woman facing life in prison. Recordings that could have been edited. Financial records that prove nothing definitive. They want you to convict a decorated officer based on suspicion and innuendo. But in America, we don't convict people based on suspicion. We require proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And the prosecution hasn't met that burden. You must acquit. The jury deliberated for 6 days. Emily waited in a hotel room. Mark stayed with her. So did Marcus. She didn't eat, didn't sleep, just paced and waited. On the 6th day, Marcus's phone rang. He answered, listened, hung up. Jury's back. The courtroom was silent as the jury filed in. None of them looked at Hale. That was a good sign. Brennan had told her that. When a jury convicts, they don't look at the defendant. Judge Ramirez addressed the foreman. Have you reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the charge of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, how do you find the defendant guilty? A gasp rippled through the courtroom. On the charge of racketeering? Guilty. On the charge of witness tampering? Guilty. The judge continued through all 23 counts. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Every single one. Hale sat motionless, his face empty. The courtroom erupted, people crying, cheering. The judge banged her gavel. Order! I will have order! Emily sat frozen. Marcus grabbed her hand. You did it, he whispered. She nodded but couldn't speak. Judge Ramirez addressed Hale. Mr. Hale, You have been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing will be in 2 weeks. Until then, you will remain in federal custody. Bailiff, remove the defendant. Guards led Hale away. He looked back once, at Emily. She met his eyes. Then he was gone. Outside, reporters swarmed. Brennan made a brief statement. Marks deflected questions. Emily said nothing. She just walked to the car and climbed inside. Marcus drove her back to the hotel. You okay? He asked. Ask me tomorrow. Ita. Sentencing came on a gray December morning. The courtroom was packed again. Victims filled the gallery. People Hale had framed. People who'd lost family members to the drugs he'd trafficked. One by one, they gave impact statements. A mother who'd lost her son to an overdose. A man who'd spent 3 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. A woman whose husband had been beaten by corrupt officers. Each one spoke directly to Hale. He stared straight ahead, emotionless. Finally, Judge Ramirez spoke. Mr. Hale, you betrayed every oath you ever took. You weaponized the law to enrich yourself and destroy innocent lives. You showed no remorse, no accountability, no humanity. I am sentencing you to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole on each count, to run consecutively. You will never again walk free. The gavel fell. Hale was led away. This time, he didn't look back. Emily stood and walked out. Outside, Diane Rossi was waiting. Can I get a statement? Emily stopped. Justice was done, that's all I have to say. What's next for you? Emily looked at the gray sky. I don't know yet. She walked away. 3 weeks later, Emily sat in Marks's office. We need to talk about your safety, Marks said. I know. Hale's in prison, but not all of his people are. We've arrested most of them, but some are still out there, still angry. So what are you suggesting? Witness protection, new name, new city, new life. Emily had known this was coming. And if I say no, then you stay in Blackridge and hope nobody comes after you. That's not much of a choice. No, it's not. Mark slid a folder across the desk. This is the packet. Read it. Think about it. You have 48 hours. Emily took the folder but didn't open it. What happened to the others? The people Hale framed? All charges dropped. Records expunged. Some of them are filing civil suits against the city. They'll probably win. Good. Marks leaned back. You saved a lot of lives, Emily. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did. Emily stood. Thanks for everything. She left the office and walked out into the cold. Marcus was waiting by the car. What'd she say? Witness protection, new identity, fresh start. You gonna take it? Emily looked at the city. Blackridge, the place that had tried to destroy her. I don't know, she said quietly, but even as she said it, she knew the answer. She couldn't stay here. Too many ghosts, too many threats. It was time to disappear. And maybe, just maybe, find out who she was when she wasn't fighting. She climbed into the car. Marcus started the engine. Where to? He asked. Emily pulled the folder from her bag and opened it. Inside, a new name, a new city, a new life. She stared at the name for a long moment. Then she closed the folder. Somewhere far from here, she said. Somewhere nobody knows my face. Marcus drove, and Emily watched Blackridge disappear in the rearview mirror. The road stretched endlessly ahead. Miles of asphalt cutting through empty farmland. Winter fields brown and bare under a colorless sky. Emily watched it all pass in silence. Marcus drove with one hand on the wheel, the other tapping against his knee. He'd been doing that for the last hour, a nervous habit. You don't have to come with me, Emily said finally. Marcus glanced at her. What? Witness protection, new city, new name. That's my life now, not yours. You think I'm just going to drop you off somewhere and drive back like nothing happened? You've got school, a future. You shouldn't throw that away. Marcus laughed, short, bitter. You think I can go back to normal after all this? Sit in lectures about journalism ethics while my sister's in hiding because she took down half the government? It's not half the government. Felt like it. He gripped the wheel tighter. Besides, someone's got to make sure you don't disappear completely. Mark said you could have supervised contact with family. I'm family. Emily looked at him, really looked. He'd aged in the past few months, lost weight, stopped smiling as easily. She'd done that to him, dragged him into this. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For what? Everything. The worry, the danger, the... Stop. Marcus's voice was firm. You did what was right, what you had to do. I'm proud of you, Em, even if it sucked watching you go through it. Emily's throat tightened. She turned back to the window. They drove in silence for another 20 minutes. Then Marcus pulled into a rest stop, small, mostly empty, except for a few trucks. Need coffee, he said. You want anything? I'm good. He got out. Emily stayed in the car, staring at the folder in her lap. She'd opened it 3 times, read the details, the new name, the new city, Sarah Mitchell, Portland, Oregon, a nursing job already arranged at a community clinic, an apartment pre-leased, a backstory memorized, born in Ohio, moved around a lot, no family. That last part stung, no family. She'd have supervised calls with Marcus, quarterly visits if security allowed, but Emily Hayes would cease to exist, and Sarah Mitchell would be alone. Marcus returned with 2 coffees, handed her one despite her protests. Drink it, you look like hell. She took a sip. It was terrible. Gas station coffee always was. How much further? She asked. 2 hours, maybe less. Marcus pulled back onto the highway. You nervous? Yeah. About what specifically? Emily considered the question. Starting over. Being someone else. Wondering if Hale's people will find me anyway. Marks said the protection's solid. Marks also said the safe house was secure. Marcus didn't have an answer for that. They drove. The landscape changed gradually. Flat farmland gave way to rolling hills, then forests. Then the first signs of the city, billboards, traffic, sprawl. Portland appeared through the mist like a half-formed dream. Gray buildings, green trees, rain-slicked streets. Marcus followed the GPS to an address in a quiet neighborhood. Modest houses, chain-link fences, an elementary school on the corner. He parked outside a small duplex, beige siding, narrow porch, a mailbox with a number but no name. This is it, he said. Emily stared at the building. This was home now, or it was supposed to be. A car pulled up behind them. Mark stepped out, followed by another agent Emily didn't recognize. You made good time, Mark said. Emily climbed out of Marcus's car. You didn't need to come all this way. Yes, I did. Marks pulled keys from her pocket. Let me show you the place. Inside, the duplex was small but clean. Living room with a couch and TV. Kitchen with outdated appliances. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Furniture that looked catalog generic. No personality, no history. Everything you need is here, Mark said. IDs, credit cards. Bank account with enough to get you started. Your new employer expects you Monday. Here's the address and your orientation packet. She handed Emily another folder. Emily took it without opening it. What about the trial aftermath? She asked. The other defendants, the civil suits. All moving forward, 17 more convictions so far. The mayor's looking at 20 years. The state senator took a plea for 12. Driscoll got 18. Marks leaned against the counter. Your testimony sealed most of it. Without you, half these cases would have fallen apart. And the victims? The people Hale framed? $11 million in settlement funds approved by the city council. Not enough. But it's something. We're still tracking down everyone who was affected. Some of them have been in prison for years. Emily nodded slowly. What about Boyd, the cop who arrested me? 22 years. Federal prison. He's already been attacked twice by other inmates. Turns out dirty cops aren't popular in general population. Marks paused. He tried to appeal. Judge threw it out in 10 minutes. A dark satisfaction settled in Emily's chest. She didn't feel guilty about it. Marks pulled out her phone, checked something. I need to get back. Long flight. But I'll check in next week. Make sure you're settling in. You don't have to I know, I'm doing it anyway. Marks looked at Marcus. You staying? Just tonight, then I'm driving back. Good. Don't let her isolate too much. She's bad at that. Marks and the other agent left. Emily and Marcus stood in the empty living room. The silence felt heavy, oppressive. "It's not so bad," Marcus said finally. "It's not home. Give it time." Emily walked to the window, looked out at the street. A few kids rode bikes in the drizzle. A woman walked a dog. An elderly man checked his mail. Normal life, the kind she used to have. "You should go," she said without turning around. I mean it. Long drive back, and I need to adjust." Marcus came up behind her, put a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone. You know that, right?" "I know. I'm a phone call away, anytime, day or night." "I know." He squeezed her shoulder once, then let go, grabbed his keys, walked to the door. "Hey, Em?" She turned. "You're the strongest person I know. Don't forget that." Then he was gone. Emily stood in the empty duplex and listened to his car drive away. The silence was crushing. She unpacked slowly, hung clothes in the closet, arranged toiletries in the bathroom, made the bed with sheets that smelled like plastic packaging, put dishes in cabinets, organized the few belongings she'd been allowed to bring. When everything was put away, she sat on the couch and stared at nothing. This was it. Her new life. Safe. Quiet. Alone. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt hollow. Outside, the rain started, steady, persistent, the kind of rain that lasted for days in the Pacific Northwest. Emily closed her eyes and tried to imagine a future here. It wouldn't come. Pleasant. The first week was the hardest. Emily, Sarah now, she had to remember that, started her job at the clinic, Riverside Community Health, a small facility serving a low-income neighborhood. Fewer resources than Mercy General, less chaos, but plenty of need. The staff was friendly but distant. Nobody asked too many questions about her past. That was intentional. Marks had briefed the director, told her just enough. Former witness. Federal protection. Don't pry. Emily treated patients. Ran IVs. Changed dressings. Administered medications. Did her job with the same quiet efficiency she'd always had. A diabetic man who couldn't afford his insulin. A mother with 3 kids and no insurance. An elderly woman with pneumonia who'd waited too long to come in. She knew these people. Had treated hundreds like them in Blackridge. But here, she was a stranger. They didn't know her. Didn't trust her yet. She had to earn it all over again. At night, she went home to the empty duplex and ate frozen dinners in front of the television, watched shows she didn't care about, tried to fill the silence. She didn't sleep well. Every sound made her tense. Every car that slowed outside made her check the windows. Every footstep in the hallway made her reach for the phone. Hale was in prison. His network was dismantled. The threat was minimal. But paranoia was harder to lock away than criminals. On day 8, Marcus called. "How's Portland?" "Wet." "That's it? Just wet?" "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Maybe that you're adjusting, making friends, exploring the city, doing something other than working and hiding." Emily switched the phone to her other ear. "I'm fine, Marcus." "You're not fine. You're surviving. There's a difference." "I'm doing what I need to do." "Which is what? Existing? That's not living, Em. You fought too hard to get here just to waste it being miserable." "I'm not miserable." "Yes, you are. I can hear it in your voice." They talked for a few more minutes. Marcus told her about school, about switching his major to journalism, about a girl he'd started seeing, someone from his investigative reporting class, about normal things. Emily listened and felt like she was hearing about someone else's life, someone who hadn't lost everything, someone who still believed the world made sense. When they hung up, she sat in the dark and wondered if he was right. Was she just surviving, just going through the motions? She didn't have an answer. Week 3 brought something unexpected. Emily was working a night shift when a patient came in. Late 20s, Hispanic woman, black eye turning purple, split lip, bruises on her arms in the shape of fingers. The triage nurse brought her back. Says she fell down the stairs. Emily had heard that before. Too many times. She cleaned the wounds carefully, applied ice to reduce swelling, checked for broken bones, wrote up the chart with clinical detachment. But when she was done, she didn't leave immediately. "Do you have somewhere safe to go?" Emily asked quietly. The woman stiffened. What? You don't have to tell me anything, but if you need help, resources, a shelter, someone to call, I can get you that information. The woman's eyes filled with tears. He'll kill me if I leave. He might kill you if you stay. The woman looked down at her hands, twisted them together. I don't know what to do. I have nowhere to go, no money. No family here? Emily pulled a card from her pocket. A domestic violence hotline. She'd grabbed a stack from the clinic's resource board on her first day. Call them. They can help. They have safe houses, legal advocates, people who know how to handle this. Emily paused. They helped me once. It wasn't true, but it felt true. The woman took the card, stared at it for a long moment, then tucked it into her shoe. Thank you, she whispered. You deserve better than this. Do I? Yes. After the woman left, Emily stood in the empty exam room and felt something shift inside her chest, a crack in the numbness, a spark of something she'd almost forgotten. Purpose. She'd spent months fighting her own battle, focused entirely on taking down Hale, on survival, on making it to the next day. But there were other battles, other people who needed someone to stand up, someone to see them. And maybe, just maybe, that was what came next. Not glory, not recognition, just the work. By week 6, Emily had started volunteering. A community center 2 blocks from the clinic ran a support group for people navigating the legal system. Former inmates, people with records trying to rebuild, families dealing with incarcerated loved ones. Emily showed up one evening, introduced herself as Sarah, said she had some experience with the system and wanted to help if she could. They didn't ask for details. In that room, everyone had secrets. Everyone had scars. She listened to their stories. A man named Jerome, who'd done 5 years for a crime he didn't commit. The real perpetrator had confessed 2 years into his sentence, but the appeals process had taken another 3 years. Now he couldn't find work, couldn't vote, couldn't escape the label. A woman named Lisa struggling to get her record expunged. A marijuana possession charge from 10 years ago that followed her everywhere. Every job application, every apartment lease, every background check. A kid named Dante who'd been arrested at 16 for being in a car with friends who had drugs. He'd known nothing about it. Taken a plea because his public defender told him to. Now at 23, he was still paying for it. All of them sounded familiar. All of them had been chewed up by a system that didn't care whether they were guilty or not. Emily started offering advice. Small things at first. How to get records expunged. Which lawyers to avoid. How to navigate parole officers and probation requirements. What forms to file. Which agencies actually helped versus which ones just shuffled paper. People started seeking her out. Hey Sarah, got a question about my case. Sarah, can you look at this paperwork? I don't understand what they're asking for. Sarah, my parole officer says I violated, but I didn't. What do I do? She didn't have all the answers, but she had enough. And it felt like purpose, like the fight wasn't over. It had just changed shape. 3 months in, Diane Rossi published a follow-up article. Where are they now? The victims of the Blackridge scandal. Emily read it on her phone during a break at work, sitting in the break room with terrible coffee and a vending machine sandwich. Diane had tracked down a dozen people Hale had framed, interviewed them, asked about their lives now, their struggles, their victories. Most were still struggling, jobs lost, relationships destroyed, time stolen that could never be returned. But some were rebuilding. One woman, Alicia Ruiz, the cousin of Jordan, Emily's cellmate, had started a nonprofit advocating for criminal justice reform, focused specifically on planted evidence and prosecutorial misconduct. A man named David Torres had enrolled in law school, wanted to become a defense attorney, help people like him. Another had written a book about his experience. It hadn't sold well, but he said writing it had saved his life. At the end of the article, Diane included a paragraph about Emily. Emily Hayes, the nurse whose testimony brought down Commander Hale and exposed systemic corruption in Blackridge, has declined all interview requests and is believed to be living under federal protection. Her current whereabouts are unknown, but her impact is undeniable. Because of her courage, dozens of innocent people have been freed. A corrupt system has been exposed, and Blackridge is finally beginning the long, difficult work of healing. When asked what she'd say to Emily Hayes if she could, Alicia Ruiz responded, "Thank you for seeing us, for refusing to look away, for fighting when it would have been easier to stay silent. You gave us our lives back." Emily set down her phone. She wasn't healing, not yet, but maybe she was starting to understand what came after survival. Maybe it was this, showing up, helping where she could, being the person she'd needed when she was drowning. It wasn't nothing. It might even be enough. 6 months after arriving in Portland, Emily got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers were never good news, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Ms. Hayes?" A man's voice, unfamiliar, nervous. Her blood went cold. "Who is this? How did you get this number?" "My name is David Torres. I was one of the people Commander Hale framed. I spent 4 years in prison because of him." Emily's grip tightened on the phone. "How did you get this number?" "I didn't, not directly. I called the federal prosecutor's office, explained who I was. They said they'd forward my message if you were willing to accept contact, and you called back, so thank you for that." Emily sat down slowly. "What do you want?" "To say thank you." His voice cracked. "I lost everything, my job. My wife left while I was inside. 4 years of my life gone. But because of you, my record's clear now. The charges were vacated, expunged. And I'm rebuilding. I got hired last week. First real job in 6 years. Legal job, I mean." Emily didn't know what to say. "I know you probably get a lot of these calls," Torres continued. "Or maybe you don't. Maybe I'm the first. But I needed you to know. What you did mattered. You gave me my life back. You gave a lot of people their lives back." "I'm glad you're doing better," Emily said quietly. "Are you? Doing better, I mean? I read that article. It said you're in hiding, that you lost your job, your home, that you gave up everything to fight this." The question caught her off guard. "I'm trying," she said finally. "That's all I can do. That's all any of us can do." Torres was quiet for a moment. "I'm in law school now, night classes, working during the day. It's hard as hell, but I'm doing it because of you. Because you showed me that the system can be beaten, that justice is possible, even when it looks impossible." They talked for a few more minutes. Torres told her about his classes, his job, his plans to help other wrongfully convicted people. "You inspired something," he said. "You know that, right? There are people organizing now, fighting back, starting nonprofits and advocacy groups, all because you proved it could be done." When they hung up, Emily sat with the phone in her hand for a long time. She'd been so focused on surviving that she hadn't stopped to think about what came after. But maybe this was it. Not glory, not recognition, not even full healing, just the quiet knowledge that she'd mattered, that she'd changed things. The people were living better lives because she'd refused to stay silent. It wasn't nothing. It was enough to keep going. 1 year after the trial, Marcus visited. He flew in on a Friday. Emily picked him up from the airport in a used car she'd bought with her first paycheck. Nothing fancy, but hers. Marcus looked good, healthier, happier. He'd put the weight back on. His eyes were bright again. "You changed your hair," Emily said. "You didn't." He grinned. "Still doing the boring ponytail?" "It's practical." "It's boring." They drove to her duplex. Marcus looked around, noticed the changes. Books on shelves. A plant in the window, photos on the wall, nothing identifying, just landscapes she'd taken around the city. "This place is less depressing than I expected," Marcus said. "Thanks? I mean it. Last time we talked, you sounded like you were living in a prison cell. But this looks like someone actually lives here." They ordered pizza, sat on the couch, talked about everything and nothing. Marcus told her about school, about his girlfriend, serious now, he thought it might go somewhere, about an investigative piece he was working on for the student paper. Local corruption. Smaller scale than Blackridge, but still important. "You're following in my footsteps," Emily said. "More like Diane's. She's been mentoring me, giving me advice on sources, verification, all that." "How is she?" "Good. Still at the Tribune, still writing about the aftermath. She asks about you sometimes. Wonders how you're doing. Tell her I'm okay. Are you? Emily considered the question. I'm better than I was. That's something. Marcus studied her. You seem different. Less hunted, still serious, way too serious, but less like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe I am different. A little. Good. Marcus clinked his beer bottle against hers. You deserve to be. They stayed up late, watched a movie, talked until Marcus started yawning. The next day they went for a walk along the waterfront. Rain misted down, but neither of them minded. I've been thinking about something, Marcus said. What? The whole witness protection thing. The new identity. I get why you did it, but at some point you're going to have to decide if you're Sarah Mitchell or Emily Hayes. I'm both. Are you? Or are you just hiding behind Sarah so Emily doesn't have to deal with what happened? Emily stopped walking. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. Marcus turned to face her. You won, Em. Hale's in prison. The system's being reformed. People's lives are better because of you, but you're still acting like you're the one being punished. I'm not. You are. You're in a city where nobody knows you, doing work you're overqualified for, living in a duplex with barely any furniture, no friends, no real life outside of work, and that support group. He stepped closer. You fought for justice. You got it. Now you need to fight for yourself. Fight to actually live again. Emily's eyes stung. I don't know how. Then figure it out. Because this? He gestured around. This isn't living. This is just not dying, and you deserve more than that. They walked back to the car in silence. That night, Emily lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Marcus was right. She'd been so focused on staying safe that she'd forgotten how to live. And maybe it was time to change that. Not immediately, not recklessly, but eventually. She had to believe there was more than this, more than work and silence and existing in the margins. She had to believe she could build something new. Not Emily Hayes, not exactly, but not Sarah Mitchell either. Someone in between, someone stronger, someone who'd survived hell and come out the other side not unscathed, but unbroken. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd start figuring out how, Shub. The next morning, Emily made a decision. She called Marks. I need to do something, Emily said. Oh no, what? Something public. Absolutely not. Your safety depends on... I know what it depends on, but I can't keep hiding, and I think there's a way to do both. Marks was silent for a moment. What are you proposing? An interview, just one, with Diane Rossi. We do it remotely. Voice disguised, face obscured. But I tell my story, the real story. Not the sanitized version from the trial, not the legal version, the human version. Why? Because people need to hear it. Not just the facts, the whole thing. What it's like to fight a system designed to crush you. What it costs. What you lose. What you gain. Emily paused. And because I'm tired of being a ghost, I want people to know that speaking up is possible, that you can fight power and survive. Mark sighed. Let me talk to some people. Run it by the Protection Oversight Committee. I'll call you back. 3 days later, Marks called back. You're cleared, but strict conditions. No location details. No identifying information about your current life. Voice modulation, face completely obscured, and Diane has to submit her questions in advance for security review. Deal. The interview happened 2 weeks later. Emily sat in a secure room at a federal building in Seattle. They'd driven her there to avoid any connection to Portland. Camera pointed at a blank wall. Voice modulator hooked up. A digital overlay obscuring her face completely, reducing her to a featureless silhouette. Diane appeared on a video call from Blackridge. Ready? Diane asked. Emily nodded. Diane started with the basics. How Emily had first noticed something was wrong. What made her start documenting? The fear, the isolation, the decision to continue despite the risk. Then she asked harder questions. When did you know you couldn't stop? Emily thought carefully. The day I saw a man come into the ER. He'd been beaten by police. Badly. And when I asked him what happened, he said he'd been arrested for drugs he didn't have. Same story I'd heard a dozen times before. I looked in his eyes and I saw resignation. like he'd already accepted that nobody would believe him, that nothing would change. And I realized if I stopped, he'd be right. Nothing would change, so I couldn't stop. Were you ever tempted to give up? Every day, especially after they arrested me. When I was sitting in that cell, I kept thinking, this is what happens when you fight. You lose everything. But then I'd remember all the people who'd already lost everything because nobody fought for them. And I knew I had to keep going. Do you regret it? Emily thought carefully. I regret what it cost. My job, my home, my sense of safety. The burden I put on my brother, the years I can't get back. But I don't regret doing it, because the alternative was living with the knowledge that I could have stopped it and didn't. And I don't think I could have survived that. What do you want people to know? People who might be in similar situations, who see corruption but don't know what to do. I want them to know it's terrifying and lonely, and most of the time you feel like you're losing. The system will fight back. It will try to destroy you. But if you don't fight, nothing changes, and the people with power keep taking from people without it. Emily paused. Document everything. Find people you can trust. Don't give up. And know that even if it feels like you're alone, you're not. There are people who will stand with you. You just have to find them. What's next for you? Emily smiled behind the digital obscurement. I'm still figuring that out, but I'm not done. There are too many people who need someone in their corner. Someone who understands what it's like to stand alone against a system that wants you silent. So maybe I can be that person for someone else. Maybe that's what comes after survival. Being the help you needed when you had none. The interview aired 3 days later. It went viral. Millions of views within the first 24 hours. Thousands of comments. People sharing their own stories of injustice, of fighting systems that didn't care, of being crushed by power and trying to rebuild. News outlets picked it up. National coverage. International. Emily's obscured silhouette on every screen. She watched some of it, then turned it off. She didn't need the validation. She just needed people to know it was possible, to know that one person could make a difference. That silence wasn't the only option. 18 months after arriving in Portland, Emily got a job offer that changed everything. A nonprofit called Justice Forward reached out. They worked with wrongfully convicted individuals, helping them navigate exoneration, rebuilding their lives after release, advocating for policy reform. They'd seen the interview. They wanted Emily to run their witness support program. We need someone who understands what it's like, the director, a woman named Patricia Okonkwo, said during the interview. Not theoretically. Actually, someone who's been through the fear, the isolation, the system trying to break them. Someone who can look our clients in the eye and say, I know, and actually mean it. Emily sat across from Patricia in a small office filled with case files and legal texts. I'm a nurse, Emily said. Not a lawyer, not a social worker. You're a survivor. That's more valuable than any degree. Patricia leaned forward. Our clients have been through hell. They've been imprisoned for crimes they didn't commit, years stolen, families destroyed. And when they finally get out, if they get out, they're lost. The world moved on without them. They have no resources, no support. They need someone who understands trauma, who can help them navigate the aftermath. That's you. Emily took the job. It wasn't nursing, but it used the same skills. Observation, documentation, advocacy, bearing witness to suffering and refusing to look away. And it felt right in a way nothing had since Blackridge. She started meeting with people who'd been through what she had. Or worse, a man who'd spent 23 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit. DNA evidence finally freed him, but his mother had died while he was inside. His children were grown and didn't know him. A woman who'd been convicted at 19 on questionable testimony, served 15 years, got out at 34 and had to learn how to use a smartphone. A kid who'd been railroaded by a public defender who'd spent 5 minutes on his case, 8 years gone. She listened to their stories, helped them find lawyers when appeals were possible, connected them with housing resources, job training, therapy, medical care, stood beside them in court when their convictions were overturned, celebrated with them when they won, grieved with them when they lost. Some cases they won, some they lost. But she showed up every time. And slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, she started to feel like herself again. Not Emily Hayes, not Sarah Mitchell, someone in between, someone who'd been broken and rebuilt herself differently, stronger in some ways, more fragile in others, but whole enough to stand, whole enough to fight. Tech. 2 years after the trial, the city of Blackridge held a ceremony, a memorial for the victims of Hale's corruption. Names engraved on a stone wall in a small park. A dedication to remembering, to never forgetting. Emily wasn't invited officially. She was supposed to be in hiding, but Marks called her anyway. Thought you should know. They're dedicating it tomorrow. Your name's on the plaque, listed among the people who fought for justice. Emily was quiet for a long time. I can't be there. I know, but I thought you'd want to know it's happening, that you're not forgotten. The next day, Emily watched the ceremony online, a live stream from the local news. The new mayor, a woman named Keisha Wright, elected in a special vote after the scandal, running on a platform of transparency and reform, spoke about accountability, about change, about never forgetting what happened. This memorial stands as a reminder, Mayor Wright said, a reminder that corruption thrives in silence, that injustice grows when good people do nothing. But it also reminds us that one person, one voice refusing to be silenced can change everything, can bring down the powerful, can free the innocent, can restore what was broken. Then they unveiled the plaque. Emily's name was there, among the victims, among the fighters. Emily Hayes, witness for justice. She cried, not from sadness, from something else, something she couldn't quite name, relief, maybe, or closure. Or just the simple recognition that she'd mattered, that what she'd done wasn't forgotten, that somewhere, carved in stone, was proof that she'd existed, that she'd fought, that she'd won. 3 years after everything started, Emily stood in front of a classroom. 30 college students stared back at her. Criminal justice majors. Bright-eyed, idealistic, still believing the system could be fixed. She'd been invited to guest lecture by a professor who'd read about her case. The topic? Whistleblowing and institutional corruption. She stood at the front of the room, no longer hiding her face. This was a closed classroom, vetted attendees, no recording devices, and looked at these kids who still thought justice was simple. Most of you are here because you want to make the system better, Emily said. That's admirable, but I need you to understand something. The system doesn't want to be better. It wants to protect itself, and if you threaten it, it will try to destroy you. A hand went up. Young woman, front row. So what do? You document everything. You find people you can trust and understand that list will be shorter than you think. You accept that most people won't believe you until you have overwhelming proof. You prepare for the fact that fighting for what's right doesn't always feel heroic. Most of the time, it just feels hard and lonely and terrifying. Another hand. Is it worth it? Emily thought about Hale in prison, about the people she'd helped through Justice Forward, about David Torres in law school, about Alicia Ruiz's nonprofit, about the lives changed, about the woman with the black eye who'd taken that card, who'd called the hotline, who'd left, who was alive. Yeah, Emily said. It is. The lecture went on for an hour. She told them about documentation, about building cases, about protecting yourself, about the legal system's weaknesses and how to exploit them for good. After the lecture, several students approached her. One, a young man with nervous eyes, hung back until the others left. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Do you ever wish you just stayed quiet, kept your head down, had a normal life? Emily looked at him. Really looked. Saw herself 3 years ago, deciding whether to document that first suspicious case. Every day, Emily said honestly. But then I remember what staying quiet costs. Not just to me, to everyone. And I realize that some things are worth the fight, even if the fight breaks you. Because at least you can look at yourself in the mirror and know you tried. Know you stood up when it mattered. The student nodded slowly. I saw something at my internship at a law firm. They're burying evidence in a civil case, hiding documents that would help the plaintiff. Emily's pulse quickened. Are you sure? Yeah, I made copies. I don't know what to do with them. Do you have someone you can trust? A professor? A lawyer not connected to the firm? Maybe. Then start there. Document everything. Keep the originals somewhere safe, and be prepared for it to get hard. Emily paused. But know that if you do this, if you speak up, you might save someone's life. You might change things, and that matters. The student left. Emily walked out of the building into the afternoon sun. She didn't know if he'd follow through. Didn't know if he'd speak up or stay silent. But she'd given him the tools, the encouragement. The rest was up to him. Bob. 5 years after the trial, Marcus got married. Emily flew to Blackridge for the wedding. First time back since she'd left. Marcus arranged everything. Security, secure transport, plainclothes agents scattered through the venue. But as Emily walked through the city, different now, cleaner somehow, like a wound that had finally started to heal, she realized something. She wasn't scared anymore. Hale was gone. His network was gone. The people who'd wanted her dead were either in prison or had moved on to easier targets. She was just another face in the crowd. The wedding was small, family and close friends, held at a garden venue outside the city. White chairs, string lights, flowers everywhere. Emily sat in the back, wearing a dress Marcus had helped her pick out over video call. Simple. Blue. Nothing that would draw attention. When Marcus saw her, he broke into a huge grin, left his groomsmen standing and rushed over. You came. Of course I came. You're my brother. They hugged, long and tight. Marcus was crying a little. So was Emily. How's Portland? He asked when they pulled apart. Good. Really good, actually. You mean it? Yeah, I do. The ceremony was beautiful. Simple vows, tears, and laughter. Marcus's wife, her name was Jasmine, a journalist like him, smart and kind, glowed. Afterward, at the reception, Marcus pulled Emily aside. I've been meaning to tell you something, he said. What? I'm proud of you. Not just for what you did, for what you've become after. You could have disappeared completely, hidden forever, but you didn't. You're helping people, making a real difference. That's not just surviving, that's thriving. Emily's throat tightened. I'm just doing my job. No, you're doing more than that. You're being the person you needed when you had nobody. That's not a job. That's a calling. Emily looked at her brother, at the man he'd become. Strong, happy, whole, building a life worth living. We both turned out okay, she said. Marcus laughed. Yeah, we did. Emily stayed in Blackridge for 3 days, visited the memorial, ran her fingers over her name carved in stone, walked past Mercy General. The building looked the same, but everything inside had changed. New administration, new policies, federal oversight, drove by her old apartment. Someone else lived there now. Flower boxes in the windows. Everything looked smaller, less threatening. On her last night, she met Diane for coffee. They sat in a small cafe downtown, the same one where Emily had first handed over that folder. You look different, Diane said. Good different or bad different? Good. You look like someone who's not running anymore. I'm not. Emily stirred her coffee. I'm building something instead. That's a hell of a lot better than surviving. They talked about the work Emily was doing. The cases Justice Forward had won. The people they'd helped exonerate, the policy changes they were pushing for. You should be proud, Diane said. You changed this city, permanently. There are oversight committees now, body camera requirements, an independent review board for misconduct complaints. None of that existed before you. It shouldn't have taken what it took. No, but it did, and you did it anyway. Diane paused. For what it's worth, I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever met. I'm not brave. I was just too stubborn to quit. That's what bravery is. Emily flew back to Portland the next morning. As the plane lifted off, she looked down at Blackridge one last time. It wasn't home anymore, but it wasn't a prison either. It was just a place where something important had happened, where she'd learned that one person, quiet, overlooked, underestimated, could stand up to power and win. Not easily, not without cost, but completely. And that knowledge, that certainty, was worth everything she'd lost. 7 years after the trial, Emily stood in front of a congressional committee in Washington, D.C. They were holding hearings on criminal justice reform. Specifically, prosecutorial misconduct, planted evidence, and wrongful convictions. Emily had been called to testify, not as a witness against a defendant this time, as an expert. The hearing room was massive, high ceilings, dark wood, rows of representatives and senators, cameras everywhere. Emily wore a suit, navy blue, professional, her hair pulled back. She looked like someone who belonged here. She told her story. Again. But this time, she focused on the systemic issues, the ways the system enabled corruption, the lack of oversight, the qualified immunity that protected bad actors, the incentive structures that rewarded convictions over justice. The problem isn't just individual criminals, Emily said, her voice steady and clear. It's the structures that allow them to operate with impunity. Until we address those structures, we'll keep seeing the same abuses, different names, different cities, same pattern. A senator, a woman from Massachusetts, asked, "What would you recommend?" Emily had a list ready. She'd spent weeks preparing with Justice Forward's legal team, independent oversight boards with real power, mandatory body cameras with strict evidence retention requirements that couldn't be bypassed, whistleblower protections that actually worked, with financial support and witness protection funding, consequences for prosecutors who hide exculpatory evidence, databases tracking misconduct across jurisdictions so bad actors couldn't just move cities. She spoke for 45 minutes, answered questions for another hour. When she finished, the committee chair, a representative from Illinois, thanked her. "Your testimony will be instrumental in shaping our recommendations," he said. "The courage it took to come forward, to fight this system, and then to continue fighting to fix it, that's extraordinary." Emily nodded. "I hope it leads to actual change, because there are thousands of people sitting in cells right now for crimes they didn't commit, and they don't have the resources I had. They don't have federal prosecutors believing them. They don't have media attention. They're invisible, and they need this system to change." She walked out of the hearing room into the marble hallway. Marks was waiting. "You crushed it," Marks said. "We'll see if anything actually changes." "It will, slowly, bureaucratically, but it will." Emily smiled. "I'll believe it when I see it." They walked toward the exit. Halfway there, a woman stopped them. Mid-50s, graying hair, eyes red from recent crying. "Excuse me, are you Emily Hayes?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." The woman's face crumpled. "My brother was one of the people Hale framed, Robert Kimball. He died in prison 3 years into his sentence. Heart attack. He was 34. But because of you, his record was cleared posthumously. Our family finally got closure. We were able to bury him without that hanging over us. I needed to say thank you." Emily didn't know what to say, so she just hugged the woman. When they parted, the woman pressed something into Emily's hand. A photo. A young man with kind eyes. "That's Robert," the woman said. "I want you to have it. So you remember that what you did mattered." She walked away. Emily stood in the hallway, staring at the photo of a man she'd never met but had somehow helped. Marks looked at her. "You okay?" "Yeah." Emily wiped her eyes. "I am." 10 years after the trial, Emily woke up in her house. Not a duplex anymore, a real house she'd saved up and bought, and realized something fundamental had shifted. She was happy. Not perfectly happy. Not without scars. Not without hard days and sleepless nights and moments where the past came roaring back, but genuinely, honestly, deeply happy. She had work that mattered, people she cared about, a life that felt like hers. She got up, made coffee in the kitchen she'd slowly furnished with things she actually liked, and checked her email. 3 new cases referred to Justice Forward, all of them people who'd been wrongfully convicted, all of them needing help. Emily read through the files, made notes, started planning. This was her life now, fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Standing in the gap, refusing to be silent, refusing to let the powerful win. She'd started as a nurse trying to pay her bills and do good work, became a witness trying to survive, became a survivor trying to heal, and ended up as something else entirely, a voice for the voiceless, a thorn in the side of corrupt systems, a reminder that power without accountability always falls eventually. She didn't have a superhero name, didn't wear a cape, didn't appear on magazine covers, but she mattered, and in the end, that was more than enough. Emily finished her coffee, grabbed her bag, and headed to the office. There was work to do. There always was. But this time, she wasn't doing it alone. And she wasn't doing it afraid. She was doing it because it needed to be done. Because someone had to stand up. Because silence was complicity. And because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. One person can't fix a broken system overnight. But one person can start the fight, can document the truth, can refuse to back down, can show others that resistance is possible. And sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. The rest comes from everyone who decides to stand up after you. Everyone who sees your fight and thinks, maybe I can fight too. Everyone who refuses to accept that this is just how things are. Emily smiled as she drove through the Portland morning, rain misting on her windshield, the city waking up around her. Somewhere out there, someone was deciding whether to speak up or stay silent, whether to document what they'd seen or pretend they hadn't, whether to fight or hide, whether to believe that their voice mattered. And Emily hoped, with everything she had, that they chose to fight, because the world needed more fighters, more people willing to stand up when standing up felt impossible, more people who understood that justice wasn't a gift from the powerful. It was something you took, one piece of evidence at a time, one testimony at a time, one case at a time, one fight at a time, until the whole rotten structure came crashing down. Emily Hayes had been a nurse, then a witness, then a survivor, then a fighter. Now she was all of those things and more. She was living proof that you could stand up to power and survive, that you could lose everything and rebuild, that you could be broken and still be whole. That courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was fighting despite it. And that, more than any title, any award, any recognition, was exactly who she'd always been meant to be. The fight wasn't over. It never would be. There would always be corruption to expose, injustice to fight, people who needed someone to stand beside them. But Emily was ready. She'd been ready the day she made that first recording, the day she refused to look away, the day she chose truth over safety, and she'd stay ready. Because that's what survivors do. They survive, they heal, they fight, and they show the world that one voice, one person refusing to be silent, can change everything. Emily pulled into the Justice Forward parking lot, grabbed her files, and walked inside, ready to fight another day, ready to stand for another person who had no one else, ready to prove again and again that justice was possible, even when it seemed impossible, especially then. The door closed behind her, and the work continued.